Welcome to the Fantasy Audiobook. Salty Fish Mentor. All my students are world-destroying genius. Chapter 61. The document clearly states that, since that incident, Han Kyun and Wang Chenghai were taken away by the school discipline group for investigation. You wouldn't know until you investigate, and you'll be shocked when you investigate. Han Kyun and Wang Chenghai are in cahoots with each other. They have committed many violations of school discipline and regulations, and they are not just one or two. They have misappropriated student scholarships, modified student grades, used hidden rules against female college students, and maliciously destroyed students' talents. It can be said that all things related to violations of rules and regulations. There are only things you can't think of, and nothing they dare not do. And this series of events, under the protection of the halo of this deputy director and a star tutor, have not been exposed for several years. If it weren't for this incident, Han Kyun and Wang Chenghai were brought into the school discipline group for a full-scale investigation. Maybe these injustices would still be covered up. These crimes were recorded in the report of the school discipline group. The school discipline group's handling plan is also extremely severe. It has been proposed to perform humanitarian euthanasia on Han Kyun and Wang Chenghai. Up to this point in the report, everything is still relatively normal and reasonable. But on the next page of the case closure, a document issued by the Criminal Punishment Department was added. It clearly stated, in view of the fact that Han Kyun, the instructor, won the third-class honor in 3 teaching competitions in the world competition, this case closure is offset by Han Kyun's merits and demerits, and he is pardoned. Official seals and signatures are all available. The only thing missing is the signature of the school's principal. As the last link in the judicial resolution of the entire Dragon Country, the Criminal Punishment Department has the power to sentence all criminals. So the case closure of the Criminal Punishment Department is usually the final disposal result of the criminal. Generally speaking, the Criminal Punishment Department will not interfere too much with the punishment of each department. But this time, the Criminal Punishment Department took action. Not only did it take action, but it also made such an outrageous result. Han Kyun did so many unscrupulous things that it can be said that the euthanasia was a bit too easy for him. And in the results issued by the Criminal Punishment Department, Han Kyun offset these faults because he had won 3 third-class merits. Although there was a precedent of offsetting merits and demerits in Longguo before. But Han Kyun's offsetting merits and demerits was really too far-fetched. It can only be said that this kind of judgment may be compliant, but it is not in line with people's hearts. Yi Ran looked at this plan with his eyes narrowed. Especially when he saw the photos of those female college students who were violated and the current living conditions of those students who were ruined. With a trace of inexplicable anger in his heart. As a mentor, Yi Ran, although he was only at the silver level before and had no ability to teach students anything. But his love and respect for students were obvious to all. Otherwise Wang Dakan and Zhang Xiaoru would not have trusted him so much before. In Yi Ran's opinion, the things Han Kyun did were not too much to be tortured to death. But the penalty department wanted to protect such a beast. For a moment, Yi Ran's hand holding the document tightened unconsciously, and the paper became a little wrinkled. You think it's unreasonable? Bai Shu's voice came again. Yi Ran looked at Bai Shu, put the document on the table with both hands, and remained silent. As if in a silent protest, Bai Shu took the document and smoothed the place where Yi Ran had wrinkled it. The recent judgments of the penalty department are more outrageous than one another, and I don't know how such judgments were made. Bai Shu wore reading glasses and looked at the resolution of the penalty department with disdain. Then, he threw it aside. Then, Bai Shu stood up and said to Yi Ran, I plan to sign this, what do you think? Hearing Bai Shu's words, Yi Ran remained calm. After a long time, he stared at Bai Shu's eyes, and said to Bai Shu, what do I need to do? Hearing what Yi Ran said, Bai Shu, who had always taken the initiative, suddenly froze for a moment. What are you talking about? Yi Ran remained calm. With your character and strength, according to common sense, you would not sign an unreasonable document, and they have no right to force you to sign. Besides, you don't need to ask my opinion on whether to sign these documents or not, and you don't even need to call me here. But not only do you have to sign, but you also have to bring me to you before signing. Ask for my opinion before signing. Yi Ran looked up at Bai Shu and said seriously. There must be something wrong with the unusual situation. You must have other considerations for signing this document. And the reason why you asked for my opinion before signing is obviously that I am one of your considerations, and an unavoidable one. Since you have an idea, principal. As I said before, as a mentor of the Magic City High Martial Arts Academy, all I have to do is obey. Bai Shu was stunned when he heard Yi Ran's words. He didn't expect Yi Ran to be able to unravel the mystery in such a short time and analyze so many interests. Aren't you afraid that I am trying to trick you? Yi Ran looked at Bai Shu without any hesitation. For others, it is possible, but for a supernatural person who can slaughter a country, it is unnecessary. If you really want me to die, the first thing you use on me is not space transfer, but space cutting. Quote. Hearing Yi Ran's words, Bai Shu was stunned for a long time. Then burst into laughter. He clapped his hands happily. Young people are to be feared, young people are to be feared. Bai Shu clapped his hands and smiled at Yi Ran. It seems that your father really lied to me. Such an outstanding person was actually said by your father to be not as good as a piece of paper in the garbage dump. The more Bai Shu looked at Yi Ran, the more he was surprised. Originally, he thought that Yi Ran was just a genius who created the miracle of gold fighting platinum because of the awakening of his talent. But who would have thought that? Yi Ran was not only extremely talented in cultivation, but also a top-notch monster in insight, character, and even human relations. Facing this extraordinary person who slaughtered a country, not only was he not nervous, he was able to analyze such a thing so thoroughly. For a moment, Bai Shu was very disappointed with his previous for Yi Ran. The decision to fight against 16 extraordinary people alone felt very correct. If this kind of monster was really snatched away by someone, his beard would be so worried that it would turn black. Bai Shu looked at Yi Ran and sat back across the table. There was no scrutiny in his eyes anymore, but he looked at Yi Ran seriously. At this moment, Yi Ran really gained the respect of this country-killing extraordinary. Bai Shu picked up the document and looked at Yi Ran with appreciation. You guessed it almost right, but there is one thing that is not quite right. I chose you not because I want to choose you, but because this matter concerns your life. Then, Bai Shu picked up the document from the penalty department and handed it to Yi Ran again. Take a close look at this document and see who signed the penalty department. Quote. Yi Ran took the document, his eyes slightly condensed. Zhu Dachang. Such a familiar name. Bai Shu continued to add. Deputy Director of the Criminal Department, member of the leadership team of the Criminal Department, he has another identity. Bai Shu narrowed his eyes and said. Kyoto, Zhu family, the only son of Luaniao Taoist Zhu Qingguan. Hearing this, Yi Ran's heart trembled slightly. Kyoto, Zhu family. Yi Ran muttered to himself, his eyes narrowed slightly, seemingly recalling some bad things. Speaking of which, because of you, I have offended a lot of people recently. Bai Shu stroked his beard. 16 extraordinary people came to our school the day before yesterday. Can you guess what they are for? After hearing this, Yi Ran also guessed something in his heart. The corners of his mouth twitched slightly. Looking at Yi Ran's expression, Bai Shu blew his beard unhappily. 16 extraordinary people, 16 top forces, all came for you. You were really a big shot, it's big enough. Speaking of which, you were really a popular guy. If I hadn't been a bit powerful, you might have been snatched away by other forces. Hearing this, Yi Ran cupped his hands. Thank you for your kindness, principal. Bai Shu said half-jokingly. Why, you don't blame me for limiting your future. Yi Ran continued. Being able to teach here is my biggest wish at the moment. Yi Ran's words were not flattery, but came from the heart. Before he got the first place in the final exam, he really didn't want to go anywhere. Bai Shu looked at Yi Ran with a sincere face. He was stunned for a moment. As a Tuguo-level extraordinary, he could naturally feel that Yi Ran was telling the truth. Bai Shu was a little surprised. He didn't expect Yi Ran to answer like this. He naturally didn't know that Yi Ran had a system task. In Bai Shu's eyes, this kid would rather give up these olive branches and stay in school as a teacher. This persistence, this quality, in the current impetuous society, seems particularly precious. For a moment, Bai Shu was a little dazed. At this time, Yi Ran actually gave him a feeling that he was not alone. Perhaps because of his appreciation for Yi Ran, Bai Shu at this time he didn't hide it anymore and told it all directly. To tell you the truth, this time, most of the 16 extraordinary people gathered together to snatch you, the genius, but there is one family that probably wants you dead. Yi Ran heard Bai Shu's words, and looked at the documents of the penal department on the table. Suddenly said, Kyoto, Zhu family. Not slow to react, Bai Shu nodded. You also know the grievances between your Yi family and the Zhu family, I won't go into details about these. Since they know that this genius is you, it is impossible for the Zhu family to do nothing and let you grow up. Bai Shu paused for a moment, leaning back in his chair, recalling something. When I refused all forces to approach you, the Luaniao Taoist Zhu Qingguan specifically asked me what to do if your contract expired. I told her that when the contract expires, it depends on your ability. Bai Shu looked at Yi Ran. I felt something was wrong at the time, but I couldn't figure out what was wrong until I saw this document, and then I found the clue. Bai Shu pointed to the document. During the contract period, if the Zhu family takes action, in addition to the pressure from the Yi family, they will have to bear the extra pressure from the magic and martial arts. They think it's not worth it. But if there is no contract, according to the rules, if the Zhu family takes action again, the Magic and Martial Arts Academy will have no reason to stand up for you. So, they have been planning to strip me of my identity as a tutor at the Magic and Martial Arts Academy from the beginning. Quote. Yi Ran took over the conversation and suddenly realized. In theory, my contract can continue to be signed, but the freshman reform has an elimination mechanism in the assessment. Bai Shu nodded. Yes, they plan to make a fuss about the final exam. It seems that the Zhu family has been paying attention to you from the beginning, and they even know that the class you lead has poor grades and is about to be eliminated in the final exam. Therefore, in order to deal with you, the Zhu family redeemed an unforgivable fool, and wanted to use him to force the school to eliminate you. By then, even if the Zhu family kills you, I have no reason to stand up for you. As for your Yi family, the Zhu family probably doesn't care about taking the life of another Yi family member. Bai Shu said, and couldn't help but sigh in amazement. It's worthy of the Zhu family, the grass snakes and gray lines, the arrangement is impeccable. It's really a headache. Quote. Bai Shu looked at Yi Ran. The Zhu family wants to kill you, so they have made all the necessary preparations. By then, the Zhu family will have found a way to contain your Yi family and will have no time to care about you. Bai Shu has already said. It is very thorough. Since the Zhu family has made so many moves, they must have taken the Yi family into consideration. When the Zhu family really surrounds Yi Ran, they will definitely find a way to contain the Yi family. By then, even if you, Yi Ran, are so talented, you haven't grown up after all. Facing a top family's deliberate and full-scale attack, your life is in danger. Yi Ran listened to Bai Shu's words and nodded, without any reaction. It felt like he knew that the old man next door beat the old lady in chess last night. He didn't react. Looking at Yi Ran's calm expression, Bai Shu became interested. You don't afraid. As far as I can remember, as long as the Zhu family arranges a kill, it seems that it has never failed. Quote. Yi Ran said calmly, afraid. Bai Shu looked at Yi Ran and couldn't help blowing his beard, afraid that you look like this. Quote. Yi Ran continued. Whether I am afraid or not, the Zhu family will attack me, so fear is meaningless, and... Yi Ran looked at Bai Shu and said confidently. Before the Zhu family wants to take action, you will definitely stand up for me, principal. Bai Shu listened to Yi Ran's words and laughed. Are you so confident that I will stand up for you? Do you know that since Zhu after the family began to arrange for you, many families have stopped inquiring about you? The hostility between a talented genius and a behemoth, all forces will seek benefits and avoid harm. Quote. Yi Ran shook his head. I am not confident that you will stand out because of my talent, I am confident that you will stand out for a mentor of the Magic City High Martial Arts Academy. Bai Shu heard this and narrowed his eyes. Do you think they can't eliminate you? Yi Ran looked at Bai Shu and said seriously. In this assessment, my class must be the first, this is a fact that no one can change. Bai Shu smiled when he heard Yi Ran's words. Okay boy, be ambitious. Quote. Then, Bai Shu knocked on the table, looked at Yi Ran and said. It's good to be ambitious, but don't underestimate the strength of any top family, especially the Zhu family. In order to achieve their goals, they will do whatever it takes. You can believe that your students are capable, but how do you know that your students can enter the examination room safely? Quote, after all, Bai Shu is a Tuguo level extraordinary, and he has experienced much more than Yi Ran. This sentence directly awakened Yi Ran. He is confident that his students can be invincible in the examination room. But what if the Zhu family chooses to destroy his students before the exam? Yi Ran frowned slightly. Bai Shu looked at the frowning Yi Ran and asked calmly, why, are you worried about being eliminated? Yi Ran shook his head. No. Then why are you frowning? I'm worried about my students. After hearing this, Bai Shu was slightly stunned, and his eyes could not hide his admiration. Even at this point, the first thing he cared about was the students. Bai Shu looked at Yi Ran, and the more he looked at him, the more he liked him. It seems that he did not make a mistake in choosing him. Yi Ran bowed to Bai Shu. I am very grateful to the principal for telling me in advance. Yi Ran saw it clearly. And in this matter, the Zhu family chose to do this, obviously not wanting to offend Bai Shu. So they used means to terminate Yi Ran's contract, and naturally let Bai Shu stand by and watch. In short, the Zhu family has already handed Bai Shu a step. After the contract is terminated, Bai Shu will not have any moral problems even if he does not help. It can be said that Bai Shu has been given enough face. I believe Bai Shu can understand the Zhu family's behavior. In theory, Bai Shu and Yi Ran are not related. The best thing to do now is to remain neutral and not help either side. This is the best choice for him and the school. But Bai Shu was able to notify Yi Ran in advance, which is indeed the best thing to do. Seeing that Yi Ran seemed to have made a decision, Bai Shu asked, what are your plans? Yi Ran looked at Bai Shu and said frankly, I plan to go out and find some helpers. Do you think the helpers you find can fight against the Zhu family? Bai Shu asked. Yi Ran listened to Bai Shu's question and smiled bitterly. You can't just sit and wait for death. It was indeed as Bai Shu said. Who can I find? My own family, the Yi family. Being opposed by the two great families, the Yi family itself is a little stretched. Where can I get people? Free tavern. Without a legal identity in Longguo, it might be better for him not to come if a conflict arises. Yi Ran's mind sank slightly. With his current connections and strength, facing such a top family, it was really too insignificant. Bai Shu looked at Yi Ran and tapped the table. After a moment, Bai Shu said to Yi Ran, how about the Magic and Martial Arts Academy as your backing? After hearing Bai Shu's words, Yi Ran's pupils shrank slightly. He looked at Bai Shu in disbelief. Yi Ran really didn't expect Bai Shu to make such a choice. As a top family, the Zhu family possessed terrifying power in Longguo. Under the Zhu family's dedicated management over the years, the children of the family have already spread across the major departments of Longguo. Its power is so huge that it has already vaguely secured the throne of the top 3 families in Longguo. Otherwise, the Yi family would not have kept a low profile over the years. Even when the family head's youngest son was cut off from cultivation, they did not take any drastic revenge. But now, Bai Shu not only informed Yi Ran in advance, but also said such words. As a Tuguo level extraordinary, Bai Shu is not afraid personally. But what about the Magic and Martial Arts Academy? The academy will inevitably be hit and retaliated by the Zhu family. Such behavior, for the helmsman of a force, is too irrational. Especially for Bai Shu, who is so stable and always advocates the Big Orange. It is incredible that he can say such words. Principal. Yi Ran was stunned for a long time, and was somewhat speechless. Yi Ran looked at Bai Shu and said nothing. He naturally knew that Bai Shu was trying to recruit him. But for himself, an unknown number who had not yet achieved extraordinary success, he chose to fight against a top family for him. Such a price was really too high. Looking at the principal's deep eyes, Yi Ran couldn't guess Bai Shu's thoughts for a while. Why, do you think I'm not doing things in line with the interests? Do you think I have other intentions? Bai Shu's words revealed Yi Ran's thoughts. Yi Ran didn't say anything, which was considered as tacit agreement. Bai Shu looked at Yi Ran, shook his head, lowered his head and wrote something. Nowadays, people open their mouths for interests and shut up for reasons. Then let me ask you. Bai Shu looked at Yi Ran. As a principal, do you need a reason to protect an excellent teacher? Yi Ran raised his head, was stunned for a long time, and couldn't answer. Do you need it? It seems that it is really not necessary. After Bai Shu finished writing, he took the paper in his hand and admired it contentedly through the sunlight. This is a transfer order. From today on, I will assign a platinum-level strongman to protect your class as an assistant teacher. With him, the students in your class will at least have no worries about their lives. After Bai Shu finished speaking, he clapped his hands lightly. The transfer order disappeared directly out of thin air. Thank you. Quote. Yi Ran was silent for a moment, and then he uttered 2 words seriously. The words were short but the sound was long. Bai Shu waved his hand. He said to Yi Ran, "Don't thank me, I didn't do this all for you. The reason why I called you here is that you really need to do something." Listen to the words. Yi Ran heard Bai Shu say this, and remembered that Bai Shu had planned to sign before. Suddenly asked, "Principal, do you want the Zhu family to continue to push this matter forward?" Quote. Bai Shu nodded. "I have this plan." Why? Yi Ran was a little confused. Bai Shu glanced at Yi Ran, and then pondered. If you want it to perish, let it expand first. You are not in my position, so you naturally can't see some things. Some small groups have done things like Han Kyun more than once. These people have hurt the foundation of this country. It's time to prune the branches. Quote. Bai Shu said this with a murderous aura of heads rolling and forces falling. Hearing Bai Shu's words, Yi Ran's heart trembled. Although Bai Shu is a college principal on the surface, everyone knows his resume. During the chaotic war, he joined the army. He is a defender of the country who survived 13 major and minor defense battles in Longguo. One of the 3 pillars of the Magic City, a staunch patriot. And the most humble and overall minded among all the slaughter-level extraordinary people in Longguo. And what can make this most harmonious slaughter-level extraordinary person so murderous? Must have touched Bai Shu's reverse scale. National interests. The principal wants to use this incident to start a war with certain interest groups. Yi Ran looked at Bai Shu, his heart surging. So, principal, do you want me to fire the first shot? Quote. Bai Shu looked at Yi Ran and nodded. Try to oppress Han Kyun and force these stinky bugs out of their means. Quote. Principal, our class is known for being a poor class. Without your support, we would not be able to do the job. Bai Shu listened to Yi Ran's question and glared at Yi Ran. You kid, do you really think I'm blind? I signed the documents for Huang Dongdong. Also, you and Wang Dakin secretly ate the flesh and blood of 3,000 black dragons and haven't come to you to settle the score yet. Hearing this, Yi Ran smiled awkwardly. It seems that the principal knows all the secrets. Principal, after all, our class is standing at the forefront of the storm. We took such a big risk and fired the first shot. If we don't have any credit, at least we have worked hard. Bai Shu looked at Yi Ran and said helplessly, "Smelly boy, tell me, what do you want?" Yi Ran thought for a moment and said, "I need a blood essence of an S-level beast, a superb quality fire crystal core, and some superb properties." Stop. Looking at Yi Ran's chattering without any intention of stopping. Bai Shu stopped him directly and looked at Yi Ran unhappily. There are so many things, and they are not of extraordinary quality or S-level. They are coming to me to buy them. Bai Shu blew his beard habitually and stretched out a finger. You only have one chance, or don't want any. Yi Ran listened to Bai Shu's words and said with some regret. Is that so? Then the extraordinary quality fire crystal core is fine, but I hope to get it before the game. Here you go. Shut up. After speaking, Bai Shu snapped his fingers, and a gem appeared in Yi Ran's hand. Okay, principal. Quote. After saying that, Yi Ran directly put the gem in his pocket, as if he was afraid that Bai Shu would regret it. Seeing Yi Ran's straightforward agreement and the action of quickly putting it in his pocket, Bai Shu was stunned. Speaking of time, Bai Shu suspected that this kid said so much, but in fact he just wanted this one. Thinking of this, Bai Shu couldn't help but twitch his mouth. Then, Yi Ran said to Bai Shu, Principal, I have another request. Young man, don't be greedy. Bai Shu frowned. Yi Ran looked at Bai Shu and shook his head. Principal, this is not what I want to say. Bai Shu raised his head and looked at Yi Ran with some confusion. What are your requests? Tell me. Yi Ran said seriously. During the assessment, if I have the opportunity to fight Han Kyun alone, then I hope the principal can stop all the interference. Bai Shu looked at Yi Ran. What do you want to do? Quote. Yi Ran grinned, with murderous eyes. Since the criminal procedure can't deal with this beast, I don't mind doing it myself. Hearing this, Bai Shu looked at Yi Ran for a long time without saying a word. After a moment, Bai Shu nodded slightly. You want me to help you kill someone on the spot? Bai Shu narrowed his eyes. Yi Ran's request made it difficult for him to agree. Maintaining the authority of public power and maintaining procedural justice are the keys to maintaining the basic stability of a country. Even if Han Kyun really deserves to die. But in Bai Shu's eyes, the country should judge him. This is also what Bai Shu has always insisted on. Even if there are problems with the criminal justice department now, private punishment cannot be used to disrupt the order. Bai Shu stared at Yi Ran with deep eyes. After a long time, Bai Shu said, Boy, I hope you remember that Longguo belongs to justice and the people after all. Even if there are villains in the penalty department, I hope you can believe in the country. We old guys are still here. Yi Ran looked at Bai Shu and said softly, I believed it, but what about now? Who let Han Kyun out? Yi Ran stood there like a pine tree. Facing the supernatural person of the Tuguo level, he did not give in at all. Looking at Yi Ran's stubborn attitude, Bai Shu opened his mouth and wanted to explain. But he didn't say any reason for a long time. After all, the public power of the penalty department was used in this way. With such facts in front of him, what reason did he have to refute Yi Ran? For a moment, Bai Shu felt a surge of nameless anger in his heart. These fools, who are just sitting there doing nothing, forming cliques for personal gain. Every unfair judgment they make, every unpopular decision they make, are exhausting the trust that Dragon Country geniuses like Yi Ran have in Dragon Country. This is simply digging their own graves. Yi Ran's performance intensified Bai Shu's determination to clean up these termites. Looking at Yi Ran, Bai Shu sighed helplessly. Child, any large country has some accumulated diseases and chronic illnesses. Don't lose faith in the light because of the darkness. Yi Ran looked at Bai Shu and spoke slowly. What about those girls? What about those disabled students? Can they still see the light? Their pain, their whole life, can be explained lightly with just one sentence of accumulated diseases and chronic illnesses. Yi Ran's questioning was calm and powerful. His eyes were clear and firm. Just looking at this extraordinary person who slaughtered the country. At this moment, Yi Ran's eyes, at Bai Shu's eyes were like the scorching sun. Burning. No, more burning. After a long time, Bai Shu sighed deeply. Sorry, I can't support lynching, but I will stop the Zhu family from interfering with the examination room. As for other people trying to stop them, I won't stop them. Yi Ran looked at Bai Shu, nodded, and said softly. That's enough, thank you. For me, and for them. Then, Yi Ran walked out of the principal's office without looking back. Bai Shu looked at Yi Ran's back as he left, with mixed feelings in his heart. Facing the threat from the family, Yi Ran didn't say anything. Facing his own plan, Yi Ran didn't say anything. It seemed that from the beginning to the end, besides asking for a gemstone, Yi Ran only made this one request. But this request was not made for himself. With a passion, speaking out for injustice, taking action for injustice. Yi Ran at this moment was even more pure than he was back then. Bai Shu took a deep breath, his eyes were firm, and he seemed to have made a big decision. Yi Ran. Bai Shu called out to Yi Ran who was about to leave. Yi Ran turned his head. Principal, is there anything else? Bai Shu looked at Yi Ran, and his fingers slightly moved. Then an extremely delicate and exquisite pagoda floated in front of Yi Ran. After this incident is over, bring this small pagoda to me. Yi Ran carefully looked at the small pagoda for a while. This Lingtong pagoda has a total of 18 floors. The carvings are extremely delicate and beautiful. Although it is only about the height of the index finger. But the doors and windows of each floor can even be closed and opened. As if it is not a carved tower at all, but a real tower shrunk to this size. The whole tower is like a living thing, periodically exuding a mysterious and old breath. It is not an ordinary thing at first glance, although it is not clear what Bai Shu means. However, Yi Ran still put away the pagoda and said to Bai Shu. Okay, principal. After that, Yi Ran turned and left the principal's office. After Yi Ran left, Bai Shu sat on the chair and pondered for a long time. After a while, Bai Shu said to the void unhappily, "Since you are here, how long do you plan to hide?" It seems that Bai Shu's response was heard. Instantly, the position of the void that Bai Shu was staring at, as if it was split by a sword, a neat crack appeared. Lan Moyan naturally appeared from it. Lan Moyan looked at Bai Shu. Did the desolate tower give it to him? Bai Shu glanced at Lan Moyan. The desolate tower is with me, and it seems that you don't need to decide who I give it to. Lan Moyan shook his head. Of course not. After a moment, the usually taciturn Lan Moyan couldn't help but speak. The rules set at the beginning are that the members of the Desolate must be extraordinary people. You are violating the rules. Bai Shu rolled his eyes at Lan Moyan. Have you forgotten that as the temporary lord of the Desolate, you are qualified to select people with the potential to become extraordinary people as reserves? Lan Moyan looked at Bai Shu and pointed to the place where Yi Ran left. In the late gold stage, can you see so far? You said that if you can come out of the late diamond stage, you will definitely become an extraordinary person. Then Lan Moyan has nothing to say. But Yi Ran is only in the late gold stage, and you, Bai Shu, can see the extraordinary. Bai Shu pondered for a moment, shook his head, and said to Lan Moyan with a smile. You know, strength is never the first criterion for me to choose people. Yi Ran, this kid. I just like him. I have already chosen him. At worst, you can report me now, and you guys will replace me, an old man, as the acting master of the wasteland. Lan Moyan looked at Bai Shu, and then looked at the place where Yi Ran left, and asked, aren't you afraid that the 8th level master will cause trouble for you? Bai Shu listened to Lan Moyan's words and squinted his eyes. When we first established the wasteland, everyone swore with a soul contract. I didn't violate the contract, so why not let him find me? Bai Shu turned his head and looked at Lan Moyan. What, do you have any questions? Lan Moyan listened to Bai Shu's question and smiled on his handsome face. As stunning as a blooming snow lotus, no more. Then, Lan Moyan stretched out her hand, student ID and documents. Bai Shu looked at Lan Moyan unhappily. Why, the desolate tower is suddenly not important again. Lan Moyan looked at Bai Shu. Important. Then why are you suddenly not entangled? Lan Moyan looked at Bai Shu, looking at Bai Shu with a puzzled look. You will be mine soon, why should I be entangled? Listening to Lan Moyan's words, Bai Shu unhappily passed the student card to Lan Moyan's hand. Get out, get out, get out, get out quickly, don't let me see you. After Lan Moyan got the card, he ignored the old man who kept complaining, and directly waved his hand, splitting the space, and disappeared from Bai Shu's office. After Lan Moyan left, Bai Shu fell into deep thought again. For me, and for them. Smelly boy, click on me. Bai Shu muttered to himself, repeating Yi Ran's words. Although Yi Ran's words were not directed at him directly. How could Bai Shu, who had been around for almost 100 years, not hear Yi Ran's voiceover? What for them, what a light explanation. It's nothing but not approving of his own actions. What Bai Shu wants to protect is the stability and harmony of the entire country. What Yi Ran wants to redeem is anyone in the world who can be seen and touched. Although both are right, there will be a cognitive conflict after all. This kid hasn't grown up yet. Bai Shu thought about Yi if it were true. He leaned back in his chair and began to recall. In a trance, Bai Shu also remembered himself in the past. When was it that he was just like Yi Ran today? Taking pleasure in revenge. Regardless of the consequences, the passionate attitude of being angry for the sake of peace. That time and that moment were just like this moment. But now, for the overall situation, for balance, for harmony, for the entire Dragon Kingdom, it seems that he has not considered the feelings of individuals for a long time. Ha ha, Bai Shu shook his head in self-mockery. I am indeed old, and my blood is cold. While Bai Shu was self-mockery, he looked at the door of the office and muttered to himself. We were young classmates, in the prime of our youth. Bai Shu, touching a book on his desk. He was full of thoughts. There was hope and relief in his eyes. This book was a miscellaneous book. It was old and a little yellow, and each page was so soft that it seemed like it would break if it was turned over again. And the name of this book? It was called, When the Stars of Humanity Shine. After the incident, the teacher was very angry. Yi Ran left the principal's office. Without saying a word, his steps were a little heavy. Part of it was because of the indignation at what Han Kun and Wang Chenghai had done before. Part of it was because of the outrageous punishment of the penalty department. Part of it was because of the attitude of the principal Bai Shu. The overall situation is important. The overall situation is important. Be careful everywhere, protect everywhere. In the end, what did you get in return? In return for these termites that harm students. In return for the penalty department where treacherous people are in power. Yi Ran, who has lived 2 lives, naturally understands what Bai Shu thinks. But he disagrees. Why should the situation of universal peace be supported by the grievances of good people? Those girls who were violated, those students who were ruined. They were in their prime years, their lives had just started. Who would pay for them? Thinking of this, Yi Ran kicked away the paper ball on the roadside in annoyance. Walked towards his class. Han Kun, Zhu Jia. Yi Ran walked into the classroom while thinking. But none of the students in the classroom noticed his arrival. The classroom was full of people at this time. All the students were looking at something around a table. Push harder, Wang Dakan. Hurry up, didn't you eat today? Wang Dakan. Wang Dakan, you are the last glory of the boys in our class. If you lose, our entire class will be so ashamed. Dakan, push harder. Dakan. The students chattered. Everyone was excited to cheer for Wang Dakan. Without noticing, Yi Ran had quietly squeezed in from the crowd at this moment. After squeezing in, Yi Ran naturally saw what happened at this table. At this moment, Wang Dakan was sitting on one side of the table, and opposite him sat another burly man. Even though Wang Dakan was tall and strong enough, he never expected that the burly man on the other side was 3 heads taller than Wang Dakan. And that strong and swollen muscle was definitely able to completely cover Wang Dakan. Wang Dakan and the burly man were elbowing against the table, engaging in the most primitive 1v1 confrontation between men. Arm wrestling. At this time, Wang Dakan's face was already red, his teeth were clenched tightly, and his whole body was trembling, as if he had put all his strength on his right hand. However, looking at the burly man on the opposite side, he still looked at Wang Dakan calmly, and turned a deaf ear to the cheers of the students around him. It was not possible to see that the burly man had used even a little bit of strength. The burly man was not only very relaxed, but also had time to smile and say to Wang Dakan, "Young man, you have good strength. It is really rare for someone of your age to have such strength. Are you interested in developing in the military?" Wang Dakan looked at the burly man breathlessly. Especially when he saw that the burly man could talk and laugh with him without any effort, his eyes turned red. Wang Dakan grinned and smiled at the burly man. "Don't be so confident, uncle." As he spoke, Wang Dakan's eyes began to turn blood red, and his aura began to change slightly. One could even vaguely feel the blood mist seeping out of Wang Dakan's pores. The burly man saw the changes in Wang Dakan's body and aura. His eyes lit up slightly, as if he had seen an incredible treasure. As a result, before Wang Dakan completely transformed into a glutton, a hand suddenly rested on his shoulder. Wang Dakan turned his head and looked in the direction of the owner of the hand. When he saw that it was Yi Ran, he was shocked. Finally, he put away his hand instantly, stood up respectfully, and said stutteringly, "Teacher Yi." "Hello, Teacher Yi." The students who were originally surrounding the arm wrestling competition saw Yi Ran and sat down in their seats one by one as if they were running away. They all lowered their heads and did not dare to look Yi Ran in the eye. At this moment, only Wang Dakan, Yi Ran and the burly man in front of him were left around the table. The burly man frowned slightly after seeing this scene, as if he was. It was a pity that he didn't see Wang Dakan's performance after his transformation. However, he was also a little surprised. In this class, when the teacher came, all the students quickly sat in their seats. The discipline was so strict. It was not like the rumored, salty fish class, at all. "Sir, which class are you the teacher of?" Just when the burly man was still confused, Yi Ran's voice came over. Hearing Yi Ran's question, the burly man stood up in style, touched his pocket, took out a certificate, and said to Yi Ran, "You must be Mr. Yi, the head teacher of this class." I am the new assistant teacher of our class. My name is Li Wancheng, please give me your guidance. Yi Ran took the certificate, looked at the photo on the certificate, and then looked at Li Wancheng himself, carefully comparing them. Muttered to himself, the assistant teacher the principal is talking about is you. Li Wancheng smiled and said, you are talking about the assistant teacher. The previous assistant teacher seemed to have something at home and couldn't come. I just took over. Then Li Wancheng quietly put his head into Yi Ran's ear and said, it's this assistant teacher status, and I got it through connections. Yi Ran couldn't help twitching his mouth when he heard Li Wancheng's outrageous speech. The principal said that they would equip their class with a platinum-level assistant teacher to prevent the Zhu family's insidious means. But who could have imagined that the assistant teacher who volunteered in front of them was a superhuman? Principal, you said to protect the class. But this is too thorough. Yi Ran was a little doubtful for a moment. I just asked for a super-quality fire crystal core, is it going to be a loss? I don't know whether the principal is crazy or I am crazy. He took a deep breath. Calmed down, Yi Ran looked at Li Wancheng with a complicated expression at this time. Of course he knew that the Magic and Martial Arts Academy would definitely not assign a superhuman as an assistant teacher. So this superhuman must have other reasons for coming here. But a superhuman sitting in his class as an assistant teacher. How can he go to class? When he thought that every word and every line of his was under the surveillance of this superhuman. Yi Ran felt like sitting on pins and needles. No, the goods are not what they say, the grade is too high. I have to ask the principal to return the goods. But there must be a reason for the return. If you want to return an assistant teacher, you naturally need to find out where this extraordinary person is unqualified as an assistant teacher. Yi Ran followed Li Wancheng's words and asked, so when you come to our class as an assistant teacher, the first thing you do is to make a scene in the classroom. After hearing this, Li Wancheng spread his fingers helplessly, and finally he looked around at the students. Said indifferently, Teacher Yi, it's really not me who led you, why don't you ask the students in our class? As soon as these words came out, all the students spoke up, one after another. Teacher Yi, it has nothing to do with this assistant teacher, it's us who have to compete with him. Let this assistant teacher see our class awesome. Teacher Yi, don't worry about it. He is just a weakling. We can definitely beat him. Teacher Yi, if you hadn't come just now, Wang Dakin would have definitely won. It's Yi the teacher asked them to continue competing, we will definitely win. Yi Ran listened to the students' speeches and looked at the extraordinary person again. And couldn't help but twitch his mouth. Although I don't know why these monkeys are so active. But the freshmen want to defeat the extraordinary with the strength of the whole class. You really dare to think. Is it the hedgehog who gave you the courage? Just as Yi Ran was thinking, Li Wancheng's voice came again. Teacher Yi, look, this is not my initiative, why not let the student named Wang Dakin continue to fight with me? Li Wancheng looked at Wang Dakin, eager to try. Wang Dakin, didn't you say you could definitely beat me? Wang Dakin felt the provocation from Li Wancheng, and his competitive spirit rose. He stood up and rolled up his sleeves, revealing his muscular arms. It wasn't fun just now. I'll show you my true strength. As he spoke, Wang Dakin walked towards Li Wancheng, preparing to challenge Li Wancheng again. All the students clapped their hands on the table excitedly, making a humming sound. It sets the mood for this 1v1 man battle. Dakin, sit down. Oh, okay, teacher. Yi Ran shouted. Wang Dakin, who was eager to try, quickly responded to Yi Ran's words. Then he retreated obediently and sitting in his seat. He straightened his back, as if he was a primary school student who had just been taught how to sit properly. The other students stopped making a fuss, and lowered their heads one by one, and began to study hard. The whole audience once again, there was silence. Li Wancheng looked at this scene and sighed with a bit of annoyance on his face. He was secretly amazed in his heart. It seems that the rumors outside are not true at all. What salted fish class, what lying flat teacher, can all enforce the rules? Is there anyone who lies so flat? For a moment, Li Wancheng's impression of Yi Ran deepened again. Teacher Li, can I call you that? Yi Ran asked politely. Li Wancheng nodded and said, Teacher Yi, I am very familiar with the job of teaching assistant. If you have anything to ask, just tell me. After listening to Li Wancheng's words, even though he was mentally prepared, he couldn't help but twitch his lips. A transcendent said to a gold-level person like him, "If you have anything, tell me." This kind of words. Yi Ran felt weird no matter how he heard it. If there is nothing else, please sit in the last row of the classroom every day. This will make it easier for you to see all the learning situations of our students and better manage them. Yi Ran's words were like as a real assistant teacher said. He just wanted to see how long this extraordinary person could pretend. If this extraordinary person pretended to be impatient, he would have a reason to ask the principal to return the goods. Yi Ran's plan did not work at all. After hearing Yi Ran's arrangement, Li Wancheng stood up very respectfully. Li Wancheng straightened up and said to Yi Ran, "No problem, Teacher Yi." After that, Li Wancheng went straight to the last row and sat by the wall, with his back straight, paying close attention to all the situations in the class. That expression, that posture. It was done more meticulously than a real assistant teacher. Yi Ran, who was expecting Li Wancheng to be unable to bear it, had no choice but to say nothing at this moment. A transcendent could do this, I really can't find any other reason to say it's inappropriate. Yi Ran looked at Li Wancheng with a complicated expression. Where is your dignity as a superhuman? Being commanded like this by a golden mentor, how can you be so arrogant? Wouldn't it be a little uncomfortable? At the moment when Yi Ran was complaining in his heart, seeing Yi Ran paying attention to his Li Wancheng also took out his little notebook with a proud look on his face and shook it at Yi Ran. With Yi Ran's eyes, he could clearly see what was written in the little notebook. Row 1, column 2, distracted and dozing off, deduct 1 point. Row 4, column 5, secretly eating snacks, deduct 1 point. Row 8, column 7, secretly reading comics, deduct 1 point. At this moment, Yi Ran was completely confused. He just arranged Li Wancheng to sit in the last row verbally on the grounds of paying attention to students. Who would have thought that Li Wancheng actually sat in the last row? Not only sat in the last row, but also took the initiative to pay attention to students' learning situation. He even made a disciplinary behavior score sheet. Do you have to be so professional? I'm tired, destroy it. For a moment, Yi Ran looked at Li Wancheng, who was active, diligent, and wholeheartedly serving as an assistant teacher, and sighed helplessly. What else could he say when he met such a bottomless extraordinary person? What reason could he have to ask the principal to return the goods? Just admit it, principal, you are so kind. Then, Yi Ran no longer thought about how to return Li Wancheng, but stood on the podium openly, preparing for class. Students, turn to page 36 of the physical training textbook now. Today we will learn the Kunshan Lin of the 36 physical training styles. Bang, bang, bang. Just as Yi Ran was preparing for class, the door of the classroom suddenly rang. Come in, Yi Ran said to the door. Jia, after a voice. A young man stood at the door. Excuse me, is this the first and second grade class? The cold voice attracted everyone's eyes to the door. At this moment, all the students were boiling. Is it a man or a woman? Isn't this face too beautiful? This skin is too smooth, and these facial features are too regular. Golden ratio, what is the golden ratio? I always thought it was the ideal ratio in the textbooks, but today I really saw it alive. It's so beautiful, I might faint if I look at it again. Don't talk, my nose is bleeding. It's over, my heart is moved. Quote. Calm down, buddy, what if it's a guy? Ah, a guy. It's not impossible. Whether it's 36D or 2D, there's always one that's satisfying. You're invincible, the students were discussing at once. Even Yi Ran didn't try to maintain order in the classroom, because the boy in front of him was too beautiful. The 4 words, handsome and handsome, were concretely reflected on the boy's face. Everyone's eyes were focused on the boy's face, and they couldn't pull their eyes away. While everyone was discussing the boy in front of them, no one noticed that Li Wancheng, who was sitting in the last row, had quietly moved his seat to the corner of the classroom. His head was deeply lowered, as if he was afraid of being seen. The boy at the door was still cold and indifferent. He didn't care about other people's eyes at all. He walked to Yi Ran calmly and handed over his student ID. This is my student ID and transfer certificate. Yi Ran looked at the boy. He didn't use his power, so he couldn't see his attribute panel. Except that the boy was too good looking, he didn't see anything wrong with him. He just took the student ID and transfer documents, checked their authenticity, and nodded, "No problem. My classmate, you are also a member of our class. Please come up. Introduce yourself." Quote. After hearing Yi Ran's request, the young man nodded. Then stood on the podium and said to all the students present, "Hello everyone, my name is Lan Moyen. From today on, we are classmates, please give me more advice." As soon as the voice fell, the students applauded to welcome him. Yi Ran said to Lan Moyen amid the applause, "Okay, Moyen, then you can sit in that seat first." Yi Ran pointed to the empty table at the back of the classroom. That table was moved by Wang Dakan for Huang Dongdong. Just a seat was vacant. Lan Moyen and Huang Dongdong sat at the same table. Bang! Before Lan Moyen finished speaking, there was a loud noise outside the classroom window, like the sound of a heavy object hitting the ground from a high altitude. Everyone looked towards the window. Some curious people even stretched their necks to see what was happening outside the window. Oh no! Someone jumped off the building. A sharp cry came from outside the window. At this moment, all the students stood up and left their seats. They all rushed towards the window, squeezing their heads to look down. At this time, there was no one on the lawn below the teaching building. Only a large pool of blood was left. There's such a big pool of blood, it looks like someone really jumped off the building. Who is so desperate that he actually jumped off the building? I said that the high-pressure study policy for freshmen is not acceptable. Look, this is an accident. No, what era is it, and there are still people who choose to jump off the building. Can they die? That's right, there's only a pool of blood left. Where's the person? Where's the person who jumped off the building? I guess he didn't die, he ran away. Poor kid, he forgot that he was practicing and now he can't die by jumping off the building. The students were talking about it. Yi Ran heard the students' discussion, and his heart suddenly skipped a beat. No way, is this brat serious? Bang! The students hadn't sat back from the window yet, and suddenly the door of the classroom was knocked open by someone. Instantly, everyone's eyes turned from the window to the door. At this time, a young man stood at the door, panting. The young man's head was covered with blood. He felt dizzy and seemed a little unstable. When everyone carefully observed the appearance of the bloody young man, Wang Dakan exclaimed, "Huang, Huang Dongdong." It seemed that Wang Dakan's exclamation brought the drowsy young man back to his senses. He looked at Wang Dakan and grinned. Finally, he wiped the blood off his face. Looking at Yi Ran on the podium, with a very chivalrous tone, he said proudly, "Teacher Yi, a gentleman's word is as good as a horse. I, Huang Dongdong, will fulfill the bet." Looking at Huang Dongdong's bloody appearance, Yi Ran helplessly put a hand on his face and looked up, not knowing what to say. I didn't expect that this brat really jumped off the building. Not only did he jump off the building, but he also really did what was said in the bet, without using any martial arts to protect himself, and just smashed his body down. "Huang Dongdong, come here." Hearing Yi Ran's call, Huang Dongdong limped to Yi Ran's front. Yi Ran took out a tissue and wiped the wound that was still bleeding for Huang Dongdong. "Stinky boy, you usually look smart, why did you do such a stupid thing this time?" Huang Dongdong let Yi Ran use a tissue to wipe the blood stains for him. Seemingly he could feel Yi Ran's concern for him. He smiled and said seriously, "I want to say goodbye to my past." Quote. Hearing what Huang Dongdong said, Yi Ran stopped wiping his bloody hands. He looked at Huang Dongdong seriously. Huang Dongdong still had a smile on his face at this time. But at this moment, he looked at the expression on Huang Dongdong's face. It felt like seeing Wang Dakan. Somewhat silly, but also with some seriousness. Although he still looked very smart, but the previous rebelliousness and arrogance seemed to have disappeared a lot. Seeing this, Yi Ran's mouth corners slightly raised. He felt a little relieved in his heart. It seems that this brat really listened to his words. Although the method was a bit stupid, but what does it matter? With this jump, Huang Dongdong said goodbye to his past. With this jump, Huang Dongdong seemed to be reborn. I feel a little dizzy. While Yi Ran was thinking, the wound on Huang Dongdong's forehead was still bleeding. Maybe it was because of excessive anemia. Huang Dongdong was a little unsteady now, and he was stumbling when he spoke. Seeing that Huang Dongdong was about to fall, Yi Ran grabbed him and smiled helplessly. They were all careless students, and in the end they still had to clean up their own messes. Then, Yi Ran clenched his hand. Suddenly a flash of light appeared, and a scepter appeared in Yi Ran's hand. This was the exclusive weapon that the system copied Zhang Xiaoru before. The scepter of life and death. When Yi Ran showed this exclusive weapon, the students might not feel anything. Lan Moyan and Li Wancheng, who were present, narrowed their eyes slightly. How did you do it? I didn't feel the slightest energy fluctuation at all. Li Wancheng muttered to himself. Before the two people could figure it out, Yi Ran's mind moved slightly. Instantly, the head of the life and death scepter, the huge gem, began to condense green energy. The green energy is full of powerful vitality. Even if you look at it, you will feel that your vitality is doubled. Skill. Gift of the goddess of life. Following Yi Ran's thoughts, the condensed green energy wrapped around Huang Dongdong. The moment it touched Huang Dongdong, the energy directly penetrated into Huang Dongdong's wound. Instantly, Huang Dongdong's wound began to condense at a speed visible to the naked eye. Stop bleeding, scab, and return to normal. After Huang Dongdong's breath stabilized, Yi Ran looked at the scepter of life and death for a while. Skills. Gift of the goddess of life, 0/1, cooldown countdown, 0 hours 59 minutes and 59 seconds. It seems that the two skills of the scepter of life and death have a cooldown time of 1 hour. Yi Ran looked at the scepter with satisfaction. 1 curse skill, 1 healing skill. It can be used once every hour, the effect is good. Afterwards, Yi Ran moved his mind and took the scepter back directly. No one else reacted. At this time, Li Wancheng and Lan Moyan's eyes were shining. You are not wrong. Yi Ran used. It is a magic weapon with attached skills. It's not wrong, although the Yi family's Melong Zon Gong is remarkable in killing. But he had never heard that the Yi family's Melong Zon Gong had therapeutic effects. So this healing energy definitely comes from the scepter itself. And you can clearly feel that the level of the healing energy is definitely not low. Li Wancheng touched his chin. This level is so high. In my impression, what I have seen, it seems that the Archangel of the Holy Court has such a handle in his hand. Holy relics of the Holy Court. Archangel's sword. That is the Archangel of the Holy Court. The face of the top Western powers. Even in the whole world, he is extremely capable of fighting. The person who truly stands at the top of the pyramid. Li Wancheng shook his head. Who would have thought of the second artifact they had seen? It actually came from the hands of an unknown little guy from Gaowu Academy in the Magic City. And, what was Yi Ran's method of conjuring this scepter? Why can't I see a little bit of energy fluctuation? Li Wancheng couldn't figure it out no matter how hard he thought about it. He looked at Yi Ran. At this moment, Yi Ran's mystery in his eyes deepened. Lan Moyan is much calmer than Li Wancheng, although he was also surprised by the artifact Yi Ran possessed. But, he was more happy than surprised. Break the iron rule of platinum. In 3 words, Bai Shu asked him to give him the desolate tower. Now another mysterious artifact has popped up. Isn't this the son of fate, Long Aotian, in the novels I often read? Think of this. The corners of his mouth raised slightly. He is indeed the person he likes. With the release of Yi Ran's skills, Huang Dongdong also slowly woke up from his coma. He touched the location of his wound with a surprised look on his face. Smooth and delicate, not even a scar. He tried to stand up again and jumped up and down, but his body didn't feel any discomfort at all. If it weren't for the trace of blood on his face, he even suspected that what he had just experienced was a dream. Okay, don't try it, go back to your seat quickly. Oh, okay, teacher. Yi Ran's voice came. Huang Dongdong walked towards his seat obediently. When he walked to his seat, he stopped immediately, staring at Lan Moyan's face and unable to pull it out. Let me introduce to you. This is Lan Moyan, the new auditor in our class. From today on, he will be a part of our class. Yi Ran's voice came again. Huang Dongdong turned his head and looked at Yi Ran. So I'm not the last student to arrive in our class? Yi Ran nodded. You can say that. After hearing this, Huang Dongdong smiled. In other words, isn't this my little junior brother? After saying that, Huang Dongdong sat down very naturally. Stretched out his hand. Hello, my name is Huang Dongdong. According to seniority, you have to call me senior brother. After hearing this sentence, others seemed to have no reaction. Only Li Wancheng choked violently. The ignorant or fearless. Let a nation-killing extraordinary person call you little senior brother. Extremely crazy. Lan Moyan looked at Huang Dongdong's face, then looked down at Huang Dongdong's hands. He showed a very beautiful smile. He stretched out his hand, which was slender and smoother than that of a woman, and said with a smile, "Hello, little senior brother." Puff. Before anyone else could say anything, Li Wancheng couldn't help but squirted. Everyone looked at Li Wancheng. Li Wancheng quickly raised his hand. It's okay, I'm fine. I accidentally choked on my drink just now. Keep going, keep going. This kettle is a bit disobedient today. Then Li Wancheng hurriedly lowered his head and pretended to repair his kettle, not looking at Lan Moyan at all. After Li Wancheng finished speaking, no one paid attention to him anymore. Huang Dongdong turned his head to Lan Moyan and patted Lan Moyan's shoulder happily. He seemed very happy to have a little brother. Then the loyalty of the children of the world ignited. He patted his chest again. Don't worry, little junior brother. If you have any grievances in the future, tell your senior brother. Senior brother will protect you. Quote. Lan Moyan looked at the child with a smile. Thank you, senior brother. What a picture of unity and friendship among senior brothers. Li Wancheng had a strange expression. What a mess this is. Yi Ran coughed lightly, signaled Huang Dongdong to sit down. Okay, now let's continue the class. Students, turn to page 36 of the physical training textbook. Today we will learn the 36th physical training style, Kunshan Kao. Kunshan Kao comes from a school created by an ancient great man, Kunman. According to legend, this ancient great man came from a place called Olian. He was extremely talented. In just 2.5 years, he directly realized the truth. His Kun fist was superb and invincible in his class. Finally, he was born in a place called Shi. After this great man was born, he swept across the world and stood at the pinnacle of that era. Not only that, he did not hesitate to use his own innate magical power, opened up a wide range of channels, and taught millions of people in the world to learn Kunquan, which became popular for a time. Quote. Among them, Kunshan, as the most iconic move, has also become the representative move of Kunquan. Quote. Unfortunately, the good times did not last long. This great man died for some reason, leaving only this school of thought. Quote. Later, in order to remember this great man, people sculpted clay statues on the coal mountain where the great man died, restoring the heroic appearance of the great man back then. Quote. Because this great man's surname was Ji, the coal produced on this coal mountain was also called Ji clay statue coal. Quote. Yi Ran told the origin of Kunshan Kao. With the help of the teacher's spirit, the students present were fascinated. Even Li Wancheng listened to it for a brief moment. Li Wancheng came back to his senses and looked at Yi Ran deeply. Unexpectedly, as a supernatural being, he also listened to it. He was moved. Unexpectedly, Yi Ran, at such a young age, not only knew so much history, but also used historical origins as a guide to attract students' attention. In order to deepen students' understanding of skills and tricks, this teaching ingenuity, this historical accumulation. I have to say, this kid's teaching level ping. It's amazing. For a moment, Li Wancheng had a different understanding of Yi Ran. If Yi Ran followed him to the military, regardless of Yi Ran's personal strength, this teaching ability alone can definitely improve the personal strength of ordinary soldiers by a large margin. You know, the military is a corps-style operation. The improvement of an ordinary soldier may not show anything. But if all ordinary soldiers are improved, the effect is not as simple as 1 + 1 = 2. It will definitely lead to qualitative change. Thinking of this, Li Wancheng narrowed his eyes slightly. I must take this kid back to the military. Just as Li Wancheng was thinking silently, he suddenly felt a murderous aura. As a supernatural being, his sensitivity to the aura was naturally at its peak. He instantly locked onto the source of the murderous aura. He looked up. At this moment, it was Lan Moyan's peerless face that came into his sight. Lan Moyan narrowed her eyes slightly, with a chill on her face. She stared at Li Wancheng like a cat protecting its food, as if threatening Li Wancheng not to have any improper thoughts about Yi Ran. Li Wancheng quickly lowered his head and didn't look at Lan Moyan. A good man doesn't suffer a loss in front of him. As an assistant teacher, I can't beat you, but I can't write you down in my notebook. As he said that, Li Wancheng quickly wrote down in his notebook. 10th row, 9th column, Lan Moyan, distracted in class, deduct 1 point. Li Wancheng had just finished writing this sentence, and was about to appreciate it to satisfy his little desire for revenge. But as soon as he raised it, a sword mark suddenly appeared on the notebook, and the entry about Lan Moyan was crossed out very accurately. Is this even possible? Li Wancheng looked at the neat sword marks on his notebook in astonishment. He looked up at Lan Moyan again. At this time, Lan Moyan was also staring at him. He was holding an ordinary carbon pen in his hand. He was gesturing lightly in the air. The threat in his eyes made Li Wancheng feel a little cold on his back. Although he was called the Shield of the Empire, the Great Wall of Steel, and the Absolute Defense, but facing Lan Moyan's sword head-on, he still felt a little scared. Although he didn't know how Lan Moyan discovered his little action, Li Wancheng still lowered his head and respectfully wrote a sentence in the notebook. I'm sorry. It is a man's behavior to be able to bend and stretch. It is not shameful to apologize to a superhuman who slaughtered a country. As a superhuman with a very flexible moral bottom line, this is not difficult for him at all. Okay, today's class ends here. I hope that students will review the historical origins and force-generating techniques of Kunshenkao after class. See you next class. Just as the two extraordinary people were secretly fighting each other, Yi Ran's class was gradually coming to an end. With the blessing of the teacher's spirit, Yi Ran's class made no student present feel tired. Instead, the expressions of each student seemed to be unsatisfied, and some students even took the initiative to walk to the side of the podium. Teacher Yi, I don't understand this part a little bit, can you explain it to me again? Teacher Yi, let me show you Kunshenkao, see if my force technique is correct. Teacher Yi, don't leave yet, I want to ask, if you add the exposed foot after Kunshenkao, right? In actual combat, the effect will be doubled. Teacher Yi, why does Kunshenkao have a bonus when wearing suspenders? Teacher Yi. The students surrounded Yi Ran and asked questions at once. All the questions were related to this course. This kind of diligence and enthusiasm for learning. If it was in the first grade class 2 half a year ago, it would be unthinkable. Yi Ran was happy to explain the problems of each student carefully. He was very insightful and pointed out the problems of each student. The students suddenly understood the problem. It's really amazing. If they come to the military, those ordinary soldiers will be blessed. Li Wancheng sat in the last row and looked at Yi Ran. Yi Ran's explanation was also very efficient and accurate from an extraordinary perspective. With such a teacher, the ability of the whole group will be greatly improved. Li Wancheng looked at Yi Ran greedily and Lan Moyan resentfully. Cheng Yaojin, who came out halfway, seemed to feel Li Wancheng's gaze. Lan Moyan didn't need to look back at all. He took out his carbon pen again. The moment he opened the pen cap, Li Wancheng lowered his head again. Time passed by minute. Yi Ran solved all the students' problems and confusions one by one. The students returned to their seats with a satisfied look on their faces. They looked at Yi Ran with an inexplicable admiration. Indeed, during this period, with Yi Ran's guidance and help, their strengths have made a qualitative leap. Yi Ran's prestige in the first grade class 2 has reached a terrifying level. It is precisely because of this prestige that there is the scene of strict discipline that Li Wancheng saw before. Huang Dongdong, you don't have to go to the next class. Come with me. After making sure that all the students had no problems, Yi Ran looked at Huang Dongdong. Oh, okay, Teacher Yi. Huang Dongdong did not ask any questions this time, but stood up very quickly and followed Yi Ran out of the classroom. However, Huang Dongdong also left with his new junior brother, Lan Moyan. Originally, Li Wancheng saw Lan Moyan following him, and was ready to follow him. As a result, as soon as he stood up, he felt a slight chill in his crotch. Ding! After a crisp metal collision sound, Li Wancheng clearly looked at the chair he had just sat on. There was a carbon pen that was bounced off by him. What a vicious Lan Moyen. He came up to cut off his family line. Li Wancheng pulled the carbon pen out of the chair and sat down again helplessly. If you don't let me go, then don't go. Why are you so angry? On the other side, Yi Ran and the other three walked side by side in the corridor, looking at each other in silence. After a while, Huang Dongdong couldn't help but look at Lan Moyen. Junior brother, the toilet is not in this direction. Lan Moyen looked at Huang Dongdong in confusion. I know, I'm not going to the toilet. Huang Dongdong looked at Lan Moyen and asked in confusion, if you're not going to the toilet, what are you going to do? I'm going with you. Hearing Lan Moyen's words, Huang Dongdong was a little amused. No, why are you following us? Lan Moyen looked at Huang Dongdong, then at Yi Ran. I'm afraid of school bullying. Listening to Lan Moyen's words, Huang Dongdong was a little confused. School bullying, what kind of reason is this? Lan Moyen said to Yi Ran. I'm new here and I'm not familiar with anything. I'll follow you, okay. Yi Ran looked at Lan Moyen. Although Lan Moyen had never used any moves in front of him, he couldn't see his attribute panel. But as a congenital Taoist body, he could very keenly feel that Lan Moyen was particularly in line with the Tao. He was sure that Lan Moyen was definitely a genius. How could Yi Ran refuse such a genius who was so active in following him? Yi Ran looked at Lan Moyen and said with a smile, of course. After a while, Yi Ran and the other two had arrived in front of the school's forging building. This was a building built by the school specifically for teachers and students with forging talents and abilities. It was used for forging and practicing for such teachers and students. The whole building was like a huge furnace. Even if you got a little closer, you could feel the hot air rushing towards you. Occasionally, the whole building would flash a red light. Smoke with a little spark was ejected from the top of the building. Teacher Yi, what are we doing here? Huang Dongdong asked curiously, looking at the huge furnace building. Of course I came here to refine something. Yi Ran answered naturally, his eyes fixed on the furnace building. Looking at the smoke and ash spraying out of the furnace, he was thoughtful. He muttered to himself, this temperature should be enough. The three people walked into the building. At this time, a fat man was lying at the reception desk of the building. This person was the freshman in charge of the materials department and Shu Yukai's former follower, Shang Yaoqin. Due to the disappearance of the flesh and blood of the 3,000 black dragons, he was demoted by Shu Yukai to be a receptionist here. Since not many people came to the forging building on weekdays, so now Shang Yaoqin was lying at the front desk and sleeping soundly. Bang, bang, bang. Yi Ran knocked gently on the desk at the front desk, scared Shang Yaoqin who was sleeping soundly, and he immediately fell off the chair. Plop. After a loud bang, a layer of dust was raised. When the dust settled, Shang Yaoqin stood up awkwardly from the ground, patted the dust off his pants, and looked at the three people in front of him with his eyes that were almost squeezed out by flesh. You three are planning to rent a forging room, right? Yi Ran nodded. After seeing Yi Ran's confirmation, Shang Yaoqin said to Yi Ran skillfully. At present, the forging rooms in our school are divided into 4 grades, namely ordinary forging room, fine forging room, master forging room and grandmaster forging room. The price of renting an ordinary forging room for 1 day is 4 credits. The price of renting a fine forging room for 1 day is 10 credits, and the price of renting a master forging room for 1 day is 10 credits. The price is 20 credits, as for the grandmaster level forging. Shang Yaoqin looked at the 3 people in front of him and shook his head. We won't consider the grandmaster level forging room, after all, it still needs qualification verification. Listening to Shang Yaoqin's introduction, Yi Ran pointed upwards. Then what we saw outside before, which forging room can make the whole building smoke? Shang Yaoqin thought for a while and said, you mean that only the grandmaster level forging room can do that? After all, the furnace in the grandmaster level forging room was forged by the fire-type extraordinary person invited by our principal. The temperature and quality are simply unimaginable. Hearing Shang Yaoqin say this, Yi Ran nodded and said to Shang Yaoqin, we need to rent a master level forging room. Hearing Yi Ran's words, Shang Yaoqin tried to widen his small eyes. Didn't I make it clear just now? Can you enter the master level forging room just by paying money? We need qualifications. Shang Yaoqin righteously rejected Yi Ran's request, but Yi Ran was not in a hurry. He just waved to Shang Yaoqin quietly, and quietly put a dragon coin in Shang Yaoqin's hand. Brother, it seems that you work hard here every day. Take it and reward yourself. Shang Yaoqin touched the money, but still shook it. Head. Brother, this is my job after all. Before Shang Yaoqin finished speaking, Yi Ran quietly gave Shang Yaoqin another one. Originally he wanted money righteously, but now his expression was a little relieved. The whole fat face became kind. Hey, after all, we are from the same school, so I will quietly release the permission and let us use it for 10 minutes. Before Shang Yaoqin finished speaking, Yi Ran quietly gave Shang Yaoqin 2 more. This time Shang Yaoqin's mouth corners began to rise slightly. Brother, don't say anything, I will release the permission, you can use it at will, but if someone else comes to rent it, I have to come out early. Before Shang Yaoqin finished speaking, Yi Ran quietly stuffed 3 more bills into Shang Yaoqin's hand. Shang Yaoqin took the money and held Yi Ran's hand tightly. He patted his chest hard. Brother, you can spend as much as you want today. If anyone dares to disturb you, I will write my name backwards. Yi Ran looked at Shang Yaoqin and said with a smile. Thank you for your hard work, brother. We are all brothers, what's the point of talking about hard work? Quote. Shang Yaoqin said as he rushed to the forging room of the extraordinary world with Yi Ran. As if it was his fault to delay Yi Ran for a second. This series of operations made the inexperienced Huang Dongdong dumbfounded. Lan Moyan behind him looked at Yi Ran with a slight smile on his face, wondering what he was thinking. As if sensing Huang Dongdong's confusion, Yi Ran said lightly. Master Huang, remember, the martial arts world is not about fighting and killing, but about human relationships. Quote. Seeing Yi Ran still teasing his dream of becoming a great hero, Huang Dongdong curled his lips and quietly made a face behind Yi Ran. A moment later, Yi Ran and the other 2 had arrived at the Grandmaster level forging room. The Grandmaster level forging room was simpler than those other forging rooms. There were no other forging tools around, only a huge furnace in the center. And all kinds of mysterious and powerful runes were covered on the furnace. As the runes flashed, a flash of energy was working. The flames in the entire furnace were constantly surging. The heat brought by each surge made people feel the burning pain on their faces. Yi Ran walked forward to observe the huge furnace. The heat of the furnace almost doubled. As soon as Yi Ran approached the furnace, the burning sensation that came to his face was like the spray of a fire dragon, piercing Yi Ran's face. Yi Ran had to activate his Molong Zongong to protect his body. This temperature should be enough. Yi Ran looked at the surging fire dragon in the furnace with satisfaction, muttering to himself. Huang Dongdong looked at Yi Ran curiously. Teacher, what are you going to refine with such a big battle? After hearing Huang Dongdong's question, Yi Ran turned his head and stared at Huang Dongdong, and his eyes made Huang Dongdong a little scared. What else can I refine? Of course, I'm going to refine you. Chapter 71. Looking at Yi Ran's as if it was a matter of course. Huang Dongdong looked left and right, pointed at himself with his finger, and widened his eyes in disbelief. Ah, me, what a joke, this is a master-level furnace. It will kill people. Yi Ran took out a steel bar from somewhere and threw it gently into the furnace. Shish, a gasification sounded. The steel bar was instantly swallowed by the flames in the furnace. Yi Ran nodded with satisfaction. The temperature is okay, take off your clothes quickly. The temperature is okay. Huang Dongdong smiled awkwardly and panically when he heard Yi Ran's words. Teacher, you are not kidding, are you? Yi Ran turned around and looked at Huang Dongdong. Do you think I am kidding? Looking at Yi Ran's serious expression, Huang Dongdong's heart, which had been hanging in the air, completely died. Yi Ran looked at his watch and urged. Take it off quickly. If you don't hurry up, you will waste time. Let Lan Moyan help you. Lan Moyan stood aside, and confusion flashed in his eyes at this time. With his vision, he couldn't think of what Yi Ran wanted to do for a while. After all, Bai Shu usually likes to tinker with some space-related magic tools. He is also a forging master. So Bai Shu definitely worked hard to build this furnace. Other places of magic and martial arts may cut corners. But it is absolutely impossible in the forging room. For a furnace of this level, even if the materials with high fire resistance are thrown in, they will probably be melted in a few minutes. Lan Moyen looked at Huang Dongdong on the side. Does Yi Ran really want to throw him in? Lan Moyen shook his head secretly. With Huang Dongdong's strength, there is only one result if he goes in. Directly vaporize. And throwing people into the furnace. It feels like destroying the body no matter how you look at it. At this moment, Lan Moyen is a little suspicious. Does this kid have a grudge against Yi Ran? Yi Ran turned his head and found that neither of them made any move, so he walked over helplessly. Yi Ran came to Huang Dongdong, half squatted down, and looked at Huang Dongdong. Dongdong, did your master promise to help you forge the Samadhi True Fire Golden Body? Huang Dongdong nodded. Yi Ran continued. Today, your master will fulfill his promise, so you have to cooperate. Listening to Yi Ran's words, cooperation. Cooperation in jumping into the furnace. Huang Dongdong's mouth twitched. Brother, jumping off the building is really my limit. Huang Dongdong looked at the fire dragon spewing out of the huge furnace and swallowed his saliva. I want to forge the Samadhi True Fire Golden Body, but not the Samadhi True Fire Golden Corpse. Huang Dongdong's eyes were already a little panicked. Stammered to Yi Ran. Old teacher, are we being too aggressive? Yi Ran waved his hand. Not aggressive, what are we aggressive for? The temperature is just right. Hearing Yi Ran's words, Huang Dongdong couldn't help but twitching his mouth. The temperature is just right. Is the temperature just right for cooking? When my master Huo Wen helped me to try to forge the Samadhi True Fire Golden Body, I was only very cautious in using my own fire energy, continuously and slightly increasing the amount of energy. If there was a slight reaction of scorching or body collapse, Huo Wen would cut off the firepower in time. Even though there was a diamond-level fire master carefully controlling it, I was almost seriously injured during the few times I tried. Now, Yi Ran went straight to the point and brought me to the master-level furnace and asked me to jump in. Teacher, I am a human, not a refining material. Besides, this temperature is something that many refining materials cannot withstand. Looking at Huang Dongdong's angry and somewhat panicked expression, Yi Ran naturally knew what he was thinking. Yi Ran patted Huang Dongdong on the shoulder and said to Huang Dongdong, Dongdong, do you still remember how those predecessors in your fire sect who forged the Samadhi True Fire Golden Body succeeded? Huang Dongdong heard Yi Ran's question and began to count on his fingers. There are 5 predecessors who have succeeded, 3 of whom were born naturally. The remaining 2, one broke through when fighting a fire beast, and the last one broke through when fighting a fire mutant. Yi Ran nodded. Of the 5 predecessors, 3 were born naturally due to their outstanding personal talents. Let's not talk about them for now. Think carefully about the other 2. What do they have in common? Huang Dongdong followed Yi Ran's topic and thought, fight. Break through the limit. Yi Ran shook his head. You were right, but not completely right. Quote. The other 2 did break through themselves in the battle and forge the golden body, but think about it carefully, who were their opponents? Huang Dongdong thought. A fire beast, a fire mutant. Huang Dongdong suddenly realized, they all broke through by fighting with fire masters, the focus is on the fire. Quote. Yi Ran nodded. Good comprehension. He patted Huang Dongdong's head and continued. The key to forging a golden body is not fighting, but breaking through the limit of life in the high temperature of the flames. Dongdong, with your talent limit, it is difficult to compete with the 3 naturally forged predecessors, so you have to take another path, like the other 2 seniors, to refine your impurities under the scorching flames and build a golden body between life and death. Quote. Hearing Yi Ran's words, Huang Dongdong's panicked mind also eased down. Yi Ran's words opened his mind. He now understood why Yi Ran was so persistent in jumping into the furnace. Although this does make sense, but Huang Dongdong felt the blazing heat and couldn't help asking, but teacher, isn't the temperature of this furnace a bit too high? I may not have enough time to feel the difference between life and death if I jump in. In a short time, the people are probably gone. Yi Ran looked at Huang Dongdong and shook his head. Dongdong, you underestimated the firefighting skills of your fire sect. Yi Ran stood up and looked at the bright red molten flames that kept surging in the furnace, and asked softly, tell me, what is the name of the last move of your firefighting skill? Hearing Yi Ran's question, Huang Dongdong blurted out. The will of fire. That's right. Yi Ran looked at Huang Dongdong and said seriously. This will of fire, in the earliest fire-fighting skills, it has another name. It's called endless life, eternal life. Huang Dongdong repeated what Yi Ran said. His big eyes were full of confusion, and he looked up at Yi Ran. Teacher, are you sure? My master doesn't seem to know that the last move is called eternal life. Not sure. Yi Ran smiled awkwardly. It seems that the information given by the system is too detailed, and it has exceeded the inside information of the fire sect's own family. Yi Ran couldn't help shaking his head. This is the disadvantage of a single-line inheritance. People and things that they accept and recognize are biased and focused after all. One generation of inheritance lacks something. If the next generation of inheritance lacks something, once there are a few more descendants with bad tempers who only love fighting and not learning, it will be a disaster for the inheritance of the fire sect. From generation to generation, many secrets of the fire sect are probably lost in the long river of history. What else did your master teach you about the fire sect? Yi Ran asked. Huang Dongdong touched his forehead and thought about it, then said to Yi Ran. In addition to being very familiar with the fire sect's fighting skills, the master seems to be vague about the history of the fire sect and other things. Thinking of this, Huang Dongdong frowned. Master always tells me that children don't need to know these things, and he will tell me when I grow up. Hearing this, Yi Ran probably knows about the current situation of the fire sect. It is said that the disciples of the fire sect have hot tempers and are as crude as warriors. Now it seems that the reputation is well deserved. It seems that the fire sect can pass down the skills completely without completely disappearing, which is also a blessing from God. Thinking of this, Yi Ran felt relieved. Since you didn't pass down much, don't blame me for making it up. Cough, cough. Yi Ran coughed twice and said to Huang Dongdong. Your master may have a reason for telling you this. I can only tell you that the reason why I know this is because I have seen the relevant history of your fire sect in an ancient book called Naruto. Your fire sect's predecessor was also very prosperous at the time. There were tens of thousands of believers at the time, and it even formed an extremely powerful tribe in ancient times. Name it's called Konoha. The leader of your fire sect is also called Hokage in this country. Each generation of Hokage takes it as their responsibility to protect Konoha, relying on the firefighting skills, conquering all directions, and dedicating their lives to the people of the tribe. The ultimate secret of each generation of Hokage is also called the will of fire. In this way, the secret of each generation of Hokage is accumulated bit by bit, and slowly the last move of the firefighting skills, the will of fire, is created. And in the entire Konoha tribe, everyone's explanation of the will of fire has a widely circulated famous saying. Yi Ran looked at Huang Dongdong and said seriously. Where the leaves of Konoha fly, the fire will also continue. After hearing what Yi Ran said, Huang Dongdong was stunned. He didn't expect that his fire sect had such a history in ancient times. Where the leaves are flying, the fire will also be endless. Huang Dongdong was stunned for a moment, muttering to himself. Yi Ran's voice came again. Where the leaves are flying, the fire will burn, and the blazing fire will illuminate the entire tribe. After the fire is extinguished, the leaves will sprout again. As soon as these words came out, Huang Dongdong's brain exploded. Yes. The leaves will be burned by the flames. The ashes after burning will become the nutrients for the next leaf to sprout again. The vitality will be exhausted in the flames, and will be reborn in the flames. Could it be that endless life is really the secret of the will of fire? At this moment, Huang Dongdong seemed to feel a light in front of him. And he seemed to have caught this light. Dongdong, wildfires cannot be extinguished, spring breezes will bring new life. Yi Ran patted Huang Dongdong's shoulder and said seriously, although I don't know why your fire sect didn't pass down the secrets of the two seniors, but I can tell you clearly that the key to breaking through the Samadhi true fire golden body lies in the last move of your firefighting skills. Huang Dongdong received. After returning to his scattered thoughts, he looked at Yi Ran with a sharp gaze. Teacher, tell me what to do, I will listen to you. Yi Ran looked at Huang Dongdong's serious and passionate face. His eager attitude. I guess if Huang Dongdong was asked to jump down now, he would do it. Sure enough, a teenager of this age has no resistance to hot-blooded comics. Yi Ran said to Huang Dongdong without any nonsense. Now use your will of fire, let me see. Huang Dongdong's eyes condensed instantly after hearing this, and flames appeared all over his body. Swish. After a clear sound, the flames around Huang Dongdong were already burning. The energy wrapped Huang Dongdong inside. At this time, Huang Dongdong's eyebrows even turned into flames. His hair also stood up and began to sway like flames. This is the last move of the firefighting skill, the will of fire, which belongs to the form-changing skill, and can bring his affinity for fire to the extreme that his talent can reach. Yi Ran looked at Huang Dongdong's will of fire and nodded with satisfaction. Such a high affinity for fire, the talent is indeed good. Huang Dongdong looked at Yi Ran with a bitter smile on his face. But teacher, my master and I have tried this form, but in the end we returned empty-handed. Yi Ran nodded. Of course we returned empty-handed. The attempts you mentioned must have been superficial attempts, and none of them really faced the test of life and death. Am I right? Listening to what Yi Ran said, Huang Dongdong nodded. Indeed, every time he tried it little by little under Huo Wen's special protection. He would never consider the risk of his life. Yi Ran shook his head and said to Huang Dongdong, many attempts have not only brought many failures, but also made you completely afraid of fire. Plus your previous rebellious character, it is difficult for you to pass the stage of tempering the heart fire. How can a person who can't bear the heart fire and is afraid of fire at the same time forge the Samadhi true fire golden body? After hearing these words, Huang Dongdong also lowered his head unconsciously. There is nothing wrong with teacher Yi's analysis. In a situation like his, if he can still forge the Samadhi true fire golden body, if I say that I am not arrogant, then that is unreasonable. Thinking of this, Huang Dongdong recalled the experiences that Yi Ran had with him before. With his smart mind, he gradually understood Yi Ran's previous behavior. So, teacher, your previous deliberate suppression and preaching were to make me eradicate my arrogant nature. Yi Ran nodded and pointed to the hot furnace. Dongdong, now your inner demon has been eliminated. As long as you dare to face life and death, enter the game with your body, and go through the gates of hell, the Samadhi true fire golden body will surely reappear in the world today. Yi Ran's words made Huang Dongdong's blood boil. After all, the fire sect hadn't had a practitioner of Samadhi true fire golden body for nearly 100 years. To be honest, the sect has lost its former glory. And today, Huang Dongdong is about to save the collapsing building. It is our duty to restore the glory of the fire sect. Huang Dongdong's second-year soul was burning. Teacher, I'll go then. Huang Dongdong said as he strode towards the furnace, with a determined look in his eyes. If he doesn't die, he will die. Huang Dongdong turned his head and looked at Yi Ran with a second-year passion. Where the leaves of Konoha fly, the fire will also continue. The will of fire will be inherited by me. Wait, you haven't taken off your clothes yet. Yi Ran was about to remind Huang Dongdong that he didn't have time to take off his clothes. Huang Dongdong jumped into the high-temperature furnace without hesitation, and was instantly swallowed by the fire dragon. After Huang Dongdong jumped in, Yi Ran and Lan Moyan quickly came to the furnace mouth. Looking down, Lan Moyan was a supernatural person at the level of slaughtering a country after all. His eyes flickered with the sharpness of a blade. As if he could split the layers of flames. He saw Huang Dongdong's figure in the hot furnace fire at a glance. At this time, Huang Dongdong was not completely vaporized by the furnace as imagined. The fiery red light around him tightly protected Huang Dongdong's body. All the lava that was about to invade Huang Dongdong was transformed into pure fire elements under the fiery red flames and poured into Huang Dongdong's body. Huang Dongdong was just like this, in the fusion of the two flames. Going with the flow. Seeing this, Lan Moyan was also slightly surprised. I didn't expect that the fire will of the fire sect could actually allow Huang Dongdong to survive in this ultra-high temperature furnace. Lan Moyan looked at Yi Ran on the side. He had never heard of the secret of the fire sect that Yi Ran told Huang Dongdong before, and he couldn't tell whether it was true or false. But Huang Dongdong's current state completely confirmed what Yi Ran said before. Lan Moyan's expression was a little complicated. These secrets that even the fire sect didn't pass down. Why did Yi Ran know them so clearly? Teacher Yi, where did you see the ancient book of Naruto you mentioned? I also want to browse it. Lan Moyan asked. Yi Ran turned his head and looked at Lan Moyan. Ah. You mean the ancient book? I just happened to find that book in the principal's collection, it's really not easy to borrow. Yi Ran thought about it and made up a reason. It's best to push this matter to the principal. After all, you are a student and you are always embarrassed to ask the principal to borrow books. Bai Shu. Lan Moyan nodded slightly after hearing Yi Ran's words. Given Bai Shu's age and experience, it is indeed reasonable to say so. I didn't expect this old guy to have hidden so many treasures. I must borrow Bai Shu to have a look when I have the chance in the future. Time passed by minute by minute. The will of fire maintained by Huang Dongdong and the boiling molten flames reached a wonderful balance. Huang Dongdong's body has gradually lost its original flesh color. The whole body is golden red, as if the Buddha was plated with gold. But just when everything was going smoothly, something strange happened suddenly. Huang Dongdong, who was in the furnace, began to frown and made an extremely painful expression on his face. As Huang Dongdong's expression changed, the golden red energy around Huang Dongdong began to swing back and forth unstably. The wonderful balance was instantly broken. In the furnace, the hot energy was like a raging dragon, surged back and forth. Even the whole furnace began to shake. After seeing this scene, Lan Moyan looked at Yi Ran. What's going on? At this time, Lan Moyan had begun to condense energy slightly with one hand. If Yi Ran said that the situation was not right, he planned to help. Yi Ran, who was paying full attention to Huang Dongdong, did not see Lan Moyan's actions. He looked at Huang Dongdong intently and said, "It's time to temper the heart fire." Huang Dongdong is now in the most critical step in the tempering of Samadhi true fire golden body. Once he steps through it, he will have a bright future. If he fails to step through it, he will be crushed to pieces and burned to ashes. Quote. Lan Moyan looked down and frowned slightly. But it seems that Huang Dongdong can't hold on. At this time, Huang Dongdong's whole body has begun to tremble in pain. The golden red energy around him has become as thin as a piece of thin paper. As if in a furnace, any subsequent surges have a chance to pierce Huang Dongdong's thin film. At this time, Huang Dongdong, the whole person is like a lone boat floating in the turbulent sea. Any wind and wave may overturn him into the sea and he will never recover. Why do you think that in the history of the fire sect over the past 1,000 years, only 5 people have successfully tempered the Samadhi true fire golden body? Yi Ran still focused on Huang Dongdong in the furnace, and responded to Lan Moyan's question. People can only see the glorious posture of the 5 successful people, but they can't see the thousands of failed people behind them. Any road to the top is not so easy to walk. Quote, wealth and honor are sought in danger, and they are also lost in danger. 1 out of 10 times you seek, 9 out of 10 times you lose. What Huang Dongdong experienced is just a repetition of the history of geniuses from their fire sect over the past 1,000 years. Quote, looking at Yi Ran's calm attitude, Lan Moyan also gently relaxed his fingers. It seems that all this is within Yi Ran's expectations. Yi Ran looked at the painful Huang Dongdong in the furnace. At this time, the golden red energy around Huang Dongdong had begun to be broken in some places. His golden red golden body, which was already in bad condition, began to burn and blacken under the erosion of the scorching flames. Yi Ran looked at the painful Huang Dongdong, his eyes became calmer and calmer. He looked up at his watch, then looked at the sky, muttering to himself. Hold on, it's almost time. Time passed in silence, 1 minute and 1 second. Huang Dongdong's 2 arms had completely become charred. Huang Dongdong, at this time, even stopped struggling. The vital signs were almost unobservable. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, quote. Yi Ran looked at his watch, and when he counted to 1, Yi Ran suddenly took out a fire crystal core from his pocket. Lan Moyan could tell at a glance that this was an extraordinary fire crystal core, which was worth a lot of money. Yi Ran didn't even look at it, and threw it directly into the furnace. The crystal core was stimulated by the high temperature of the furnace. and it directly detonated the huge fire energy in its crystal core. The molten flame in the furnace was like a shot of cardiotonic, and the red had begun to turn purple. Instantly, the golden red energy around Huang Dongdong that was still struggling to hold on was directly shattered by the violent fire element. At this moment, Huang Dongdong faced the scorching heat with his body. Crazy. Lan Moyan, who was still waiting for Yi Ran's action, shook his head after seeing this scene. He couldn't wait any longer. Lan Moyan slightly bent his fingers, and the sword intent began to gather, intending to go down and save people directly. But Yi Ran's voice sounded in his ears at this moment. Wildfires can't burn them all, and spring breezes will bring them back to life. Huang Dongdong, live for me. Quote, when Yi Ran shouted angrily. The sun climbed to the sky. The dazzling sunlight blasted into the furnace along the sky. The blazing flames, the scorching sun, and the violent fire elements complemented each other. The intensity of the flames in the furnace reached its peak at this moment. The extreme high temperature destroyed all life. But on Huang Dongdong's dry body, there was an endless excitement. The extreme flame destroyed all of Huang Dongdong's vitality. Huang Dongdong's body was charred, and there was no intact skin on his body. But the strange thing was that such a high temperature did not completely vaporize Huang Dongdong. Not only that, Huang Dongdong, who had no consciousness and vitality, was lying flat on his back, and was dragged out by the flames. The whole person was suspended on the mouth of the furnace. This is. Lan Moyan had already dispersed the energy in his hand. He looked at the person being lifted up by the flames. Huang Dongdong, who came up, was a little surprised. Even though he was a Tuguo level extraordinary, he had never seen such a situation before. Plop, plop, plop. In the silent space, the sound of the heartbeat was clearly heard by Lan Moyan and Yi Ran. At this moment, Lan Moyan's pupils shrank slightly, looking at the body that had become charcoal in disbelief. Heartbeat. No, it's life. Buzz. On Huang Dongdong's charred body, waves of invisible ripples were swaying. The vitality that was rushing towards him was clearly visible. Crack. With a cracking sound, on Huang Dongdong's charred body, cracks began to appear. Click, click. The charred shell began to fall off. Inside the charred shell, Huang Dongdong's skin was exposed. White, smooth, delicate, with visible elasticity. Like a newborn baby. After a while, the charred shell on Huang Dongdong's body fell off completely. Huang Dongdong, who was intact, appeared in front of the two of them again. Huang Dongdong is alive. Miracle. This scene made Lan Moyan couldn't help but sigh in admiration. After all, he had already determined that Huang Dongdong was completely devoured by the violent fire element. But he didn't expect Yi Ran to perform a miracle in front of him. The next second, Huang Dongdong slowly opened his eyes. He clenched his fists in disbelief, and looked at Yi Ran again. Teacher, I'm still alive. Yi Ran looked at the reborn Huang Dongdong, and nodded. You are not only alive, you are also living well. Put on your clothes first. Huang Dongdong then realized that he had no clothes on him. Embarrassed, he instantly raised a flame, covering his body. Then at lightning speed, he touched a piece of clothes used for forging next to the forging room and put it on. There was no way, his previous clothes had been burned in the furnace without even a slag left. Yi Ran looked at Huang Dongdong with a smile. How do you feel? Huang Dongdong felt his body slightly and grinned. Very good, I have never felt better than now. Yi Ran nodded and said to Huang Dongdong. Try it now, use your will of fire again. Okay, teacher. After Huang Dongdong responded, he began to hold his breath and concentrate. Swish. The golden red energy around Huang Dongdong appeared again. But this time not only the golden red flames appeared around. Huang Dongdong's body also began to glow with golden red light. Teacher, this is. At this time, Huang Dongdong looked at the changes in his body and felt the surging energy. His expression was a little excited. He guessed that he might have succeeded, but he didn't dare to believe in himself completely. At this time, Yi Ran did not answer Huang Dongdong directly. He just turned around and pointed at the huge furnace. Try jumping in again this time. Huang Dongdong nodded vigorously with excitement. Instantly turned into a meteor and rushed into the furnace. After Huang Dongdong entered this time, he did not feel the slightest heat or burning. He swam in the flames. Huang Dongdong could even feel the flames entangled him like a puppy. Chasing Huang Dongdong, rubbing Huang Dongdong intimately. Huang Dongdong moved his mind. The huge flames were like surging waves. Like this, he lifted himself up directly. And he stood on the crest of the waves composed of flames. Like the emperor of this red ocean. Seeing Huang Dongdong's performance, Lan Moyan's calm eyes finally showed shock. Ignoring any high-temperature erosion, he used the flame energy as if it were his arm. Such a flame affinity is the ultimate. And he has only seen this situation in one person. That is another one of the 3 pillars of the Magic City. The Tuguo level extraordinary, the Flame Devourer, the Flame King, the God of Fire, Zhu Duanjin. Lan Moyan looked deeply at Huang Dongdong on the flame wave. Is this the so-called Samadhi true fire golden body? Let a mere gold kid, in terms of affinity with fire, directly improve to be comparable to the fire type transcendent of the Tuguo level. For a moment, Lan Moyan's eyes were fixed on Yi Ran. Huang Dongdong's current achievements can be said to be completely supported by Yi Ran. I originally thought that Yi Ran's teaching ability in the classroom was already top-notch. But compared with this miracle, it was simply an ant meeting the blue sky. This trip was not in vain. Yi Ran's degree of evilness far exceeded his imagination. For a moment, Lan Moyan thought of Li Wancheng, who was sitting at the back of the classroom. No, Li Wancheng must not know this. Lan Moyan thought for a moment. We must think of a way to send Li Wancheng to the hospital first. Huang Dongdong's mind moved. Instantly, the flames that supported him returned to the furnace again very obediently. The furnace at this time seemed extremely calm. There was no constant turmoil before. It felt like an obedient pet. Huang Dongdong came to Yi Ran like flying. There was an unprecedented excitement in his expression. He was so excited that he couldn't even speak coherently. Teacher, I really succeeded. Yi Ran looked at Huang Dongdong with a smile and nodded. Congratulations, the glory of the fire sect will be rebuilt from you. Quote. After receiving Yi Ran's affirmative answer, Huang Dongdong's eyes began to turn red slightly. Teacher, perhaps because he had completed the great cause of the fire sect in the past 100 years. Perhaps because he was grateful for Yi Ran's help. In short, all kinds of complex emotions surged in his heart. The young Huang Dongdong lacked the calmness of an adult after all. There was already moisture in his eyes. Just when Huang Dongdong was extremely excited, Yi Ran's voice came again. Don't be excited yet, now try your best to feel your own strength. After hearing this, Huang Dongdong closed his eyes and began to silently practice the fire sect technique. In an instant, the golden red flame once again swept Huang Dongdong's body. Samadhi true fire golden body, open. As Huang Dongdong's eyes suddenly opened, golden red energy filled his pupils. A golden red light began to appear on his skin. Dongdong, silently feel the movement of the energy around you, and silently experience the fire elements around you. As Yi Ran's voice came again, Huang Dongdong closed his eyes and began to carefully feel the flow of the fire elements around him. It was still pitch black. In an instant, Huang Dongdong felt flames rising around him. These flames were strange and varied in shape. It seemed that they felt Huang Dongdong's attention to them. These flames actually flew towards Huang Dongdong in a very fitting way, continuously blending into Huang Dongdong's golden red energy. Huang Dongdong only felt that he was warm and comfortable around him. From Lan Moyan's perspective, he could keenly feel that all the fire elements around him began to gather towards Huang Dongdong. Some strange rhythmic changes had occurred in the entire space. This was a change in the rules of the deepest domain. As a supernatural being of the Tuguo level, he could clearly feel what Huang Dongdong was doing at the moment. The boy in front of him was actually forming his own domain rules. In other words, Huang Dongdong was walking his own path. Lan Moyan was a little surprised. Huang Dongdong had only barely reached the golden perfection before. There was still a long way to go before he could walk out of his own path. In Lan Moyan's opinion, Huang Dongdong would never be able to walk on the path of enlightenment without 3 or 4 years of accumulation. But he never expected that. Just today, in less than half a day, under Yi Ran's guidance, Huang Dongdong not only forged a golden body, but even took other geniuses 3 to 4 years to walk, and directly stepped over. And the strength of the law condensed by Huang Dongdong. The grade does not seem to be very low. Lan Moyan's eyes flashed, as if he wanted to see through Huang Dongdong at a glance. The transition from gold to platinum. The most critical point is enlightenment. And enlightenment is also divided into 3, 6, 9 levels. Everyone generally divides the level of enlightenment into 1 to 9 grades. Among them, the first grade is the most respected, and the 9th grade is the lowest. 6 to 9 grades are small paths, 4 to 5 grades are middle paths, and 3 to 1 grades are great paths. The level of enlightenment also determines whether this person's future path is easy to walk and whether his combat effectiveness is strong. For example, if some people have realized the 8th and 9th grades of small paths, then the limit of his life is the diamond level. For example, Han Kyun, relying on his own supernatural power, the White Jade Lion, with his innate magical power as the trigger, evolved the Jade Transformation Dao, which is a small path of the 8th or 9th grade. Among the paths taken by the Platinum Strongman, it is a relatively easy path to comprehend. Although it is strange and difficult, it is ultimately insufficient to trigger the laws of heaven and earth, and has limited potential for future growth. And those who have realized the upper 3-grade avenue, most of them are based on the most basic laws of nature, forming a certain degree of resonance between themselves and the entire world, leading to changes in heaven and earth, and causing strange phenomena in heaven and earth. The difficulty can be imagined, but the potential is also unlimited. Whether in terms of the progress of cultivation or personal strength, it is far from comparable to the Platinum Strongmen who have realized the lower 3-grade small path. Lan Moyan carefully observed the flame elements condensed around Huang Dongdong. At this time, Huang Dongdong was based on the law of fire elements, condensing his own avenue. Although it was only the prototype of the avenue, it had not yet been fully formed and had not caused any strange phenomena in the world. So he could not make a judgment. Just looking at the quality and strength of this prototype, it was definitely not as simple as the lower 3rd grade. It should be at least the level of the middle 3rd grade. If he was lucky, he might even be able to reach the upper 3rd grade. Just when Lan Moyan was still thinking about the changes in Huang Dongdong, the golden red flames around Huang Dongdong began to dissipate. Huang Dongdong touched his head a little embarrassedly and looked up at Yi Ran. Teacher Yi, I'm sorry. I seem to have caught something, but I didn't catch it completely, so I let it slip away. Yi Ran nodded and said calmly, what's there to be sorry about? It's normal. If you can walk out the upper 3rd grade avenue so easily, then all the heroes in the world will die. After hearing this, Lan Moyan looked at Yi Ran again. Obviously, Huang Dongdong did not cause any strange phenomena in the world. Why can Yi Ran be so sure that Huang Dongdong has realized the upper 3rd grade avenue? I can't even see these for the time being. Upper 3rd grade. Huang Dongdong repeated Yi Ran's words in shock. He is not an ignorant country bumpkin. As the only successor of the sect, he naturally knew about Bai Jin's enlightenment in advance. At that time, Huo Wen took him to visit the great masters to help him predict what level of Dao he could realize with his level. After seeing Huang Dongdong's qualifications, most of the masters made the judgment that it is likely that he will realize the level of 5th to 4th grade. The future potential may be stronger than Huo Wen, but not much stronger. But now Yi Ran told him that the Dao he realized is at least the upper 3rd grade, which made Huang Dongdong a little surprised and excited for a while. This is the upper 3rd grade. The upper 3rd grade that he didn't even dare to think about before. He had just forged the Samadhi True Fire Golden Body, and now he was told that he was about to walk the path of the upper 3 grades. The continuous impact of happiness made him feel a little unreal. But teacher, I clearly did not cause any strange phenomena in the world. Huang Dongdong said uncertainly. Yi Ran waved his hand and looked at Huang Dongdong with a smile. Be more confident. If I say there is, then there must be. People with Samadhi True Fire Golden Body can walk out of the 4th or 5th level of Dao. This is a real low probability event. Then Yi Ran continued. I just observed that you have basically formed the prototype of Dao, but it will take some time before you can really walk out of your own Dao. From today on, you need to concentrate on practicing in seclusion and carefully feel every element related to fire in the space. Just keep going like this. Within half a month, you will achieve platinum and walk out of your own Tao. Listening to Yi Ran's teachings to Huang Dongdong, Lan Moyan was a little confused. Why is this kid so confident? He has never seen any teacher who dares to tell another person so confidently how many days it will take to successfully realize the Tao. The Tao is a mysterious thing. Some people may not be able to walk out of their own Tao in their entire lives. Even if they are at the last minute, some people will get stuck here for 2 to 3 years or even 10 years. There are countless young talents who have been stuck here. This is why platinum is a watershed on the road of cultivation. If someone told me before that they could accurately predict how many days it would take for others to realize the Tao, Lan Moyan would definitely sneer. However, after experiencing Yi Ran's miraculous operation on Huang Dongdong, Lan Moyan was a little shaken. Even when Yi Ran said this, he couldn't help but believe Yi Ran's words in his heart. Lan Moyan was like this, not to mention Huang Dongdong. At this time, Huang Dongdong had already taken Yi Ran's words as a criterion. Teacher Yi said half a month, so it must be half a month. More than one day is God's absence, and it is definitely not Teacher Yi's problem. Huang Dongdong was so excited when he thought that he was about to realize the path of the upper third grade. At this moment, he was very grateful that he had chosen to help others in the cafeteria. If it wasn't for that time, how could his fate have intersected with Yi Ran? If he hadn't met Teacher Yi, how could he have completed the great cause that the fire sect had not completed in 100 years? If he hadn't met Teacher Yi, how could he have walked out of the upper third grade in just a few days? It can be said that his future was completely rewritten by Teacher Yi. It was because of Teacher Yi's support that he evolved from an ordinary genius who lived in a corner to a monster who was qualified to step onto the world's top stage. Teacher Yi kept his promise. Now he really has the potential to be on par with S-level psychics. Thinking of this, the tears in Huang Dongdong's eyes began to roll again. Yi Ran helplessly helped Huang Dongdong wipe the tears from her face. Didn't I say it before? Children of the rivers and lakes shed blood and sweat, but not tears. It would have been better if Yi Ran didn't comfort her. After this comfort, Huang Dongdong couldn't control her emotions at all. The tears that were originally holding back fell directly. Teacher Yi, from today on, you are my second master. Disciple, please accept your respects. Huang Dongdong took a step back, knelt down, and kowtowed 3 times to Yi Ran. At this time, the cold but pleasant voice of the system began to ring in Yi Ran's ears. Ding, congratulations to the host for successfully completing the task and guiding a student. The reward for this guidance is being issued. Ding, it is detected that the teaching object has high respect for the host. Do you want to bind him as a direct disciple? Yi Ran looked at Huang Dongdong kneeling on the ground, and then looked at the system. Personal disciple. This is not good. After all, his original intention was just to let Huang Dongdong be an exchange student of the sect, to provide insurance for his class's final exam. Now, the insurance hasn't been applied in time. The person is now going to run away from the fire sect. This is really embarrassing. If I really meet the leader of the fire sect in the future, it will be so embarrassing. It's too rude. Yi Ran silently clicked yes on the system with tears in his eyes. Ding, congratulations to the host for gaining a personal disciple. Ding, congratulations to the host for winning this system reward, 5-clawed golden dragon king soul 1. Before Yi Ran checked the system reward, instantly, the cultivation bonus bound to Huang Dongdong has been credited. Yi Ran only felt an inexplicable force pouring into his body. The whole person's aura was surging. The breath began to rise. The power of the black dragon appeared and disappeared, and began to swirl around the body. Lan Moyan was very sensitive to aura, and noticed the changes in Yi Ran at a glance. What's wrong with this kid? Just recognized a disciple, how come his strength started to soar? Yi Ran closed his eyes slightly at this time, carefully feeling the changes in his body. The power of the black dragon at this time, under his introspection, has been materialized into a real black dragon. This black dragon is huge, with majestic eyes. The breath exhaled between breaths rolled up a cloud of mist. In the introspective consciousness, Yi Ran gently stretched out his hand. The black dragon also slowly lowered its head at this time, touched Yi Ran's palm with its huge dragon head. At the moment when the palm touched the dragon head, Yi Ran and the black dragon began to feel a perfect harmony. Yi Ran turned over and jumped, standing on the dragon head. Roar! As the loud dragon roar sounded, the black dragon understood and carried Yi Ran directly to the sky. Among the rolling clouds, Yi Ran and his own black dragon power completely merged into one. Yi Ran's aura was also in this wonderful spiritual journey. Surged wildly. When the aura surged to the peak, the black dragon suddenly stopped, as if it was pulled by something. Yi Ran felt a setback in the introspection. Looking back, the huge black dragon showed its full appearance. And at the bottom of the black dragon, there were actually two claws firmly clasped on the lower body of the black dragon. The claws were cold, pulling the flesh and blood of the black dragon tightly. The two claws, one was extremely cold, like a huge snake head, biting the black dragon's body tightly. And the other was extremely sharp, like a giant phoenix claw, it tightly grasped the other side of Mo Long. When Mo Long wanted to fly, the claw would tighten. Roar! Mo Long roared in pain. He tried desperately to break free, but his flesh and blood were pulled out. Yi Ran watched all this. His eyes sank slightly. This is the curse of their Yi family. A curse from the other two great families on the Yi family. Any member of the Yi family is carrying the curse on their way of cultivation. To interrupt someone's cultivation is like killing their parents. Based on this alone, the conflict between the Yi family and the other two great families can be said to be a fight to the death. For a moment, he recalled the memory again. The head of the Yi family, that is, his father in this world, said a sentence when he placed him in the Magic City High Martial Arts College. Sometimes, it is also a rare happiness to live a plain life. This sentence seemed to comfort Yi Ran, who had already solidified into silver. But at this moment, he had a new understanding of this sentence. Perhaps at the beginning, his cheap father might really want him to stay out of the turmoil of the three-party struggle and live a peaceful life. That's why he sent himself to the Magic City High Martial Arts College as an ordinary teacher. And often warned himself not to use the name of the Yi family to cause trouble. All this might really be done for protection, not disdain. However, he still chose to go the path that went against his wishes. Yi Ran looked at himself indifferently. The two extremely vicious hooks on his black dragon. If it were an ordinary member of the Yi family, he might drag these two curses and move forward with a heavy burden. Although it is difficult to make progress, but he can still make progress. But, at this moment, Yi Ran is unwilling. There is a fierce flash in Yi Ran's eyes. The energy in his body begins to surge. Innate Tao body, open. As Yi Ran's mind moved, the black dragon in the inner view roared to the sky, and the whole black dragon began to radiate black light. The scales on its body glowed. The two hooks formed by the curse, under the impact of the innate body, began to show signs of breaking free. Buzz! It seemed that it sensed that the chains were about to break free. Instantly, the lines on the chains glowed. A python and a bird appeared directly, both with cold eyes, staring at the black dragon that wanted to take off. Chew! As a sharp phoenix cry sounded, the phantom vermilion bird and tang snake attacked the black dragon directly, trying to pull the flying black dragon into the abyss again. Seemingly, Yi Ran, with a cold snort, the black dragon also danced with Yi Ran's will. In the limited space, it easily avoided the attacks of both sides. The claws became looser and looser in the fight between the three parties, as if it would fall at any time. Buzz! As if it felt that the claws were about to loosen. The two cursed chains seemed to have spirits, and disappeared directly. All the energy on the cursed chains was directly integrated into the bird and the python. Kai! The phoenix rang out. The bodies of the phoenix and the snake in the illusion suddenly increased several times. One was emitting flames, the other was as gloomy as the sea. The light in its eyes seemed to completely devour Yi Ran's black dragon before it would stop. With a sound of whoosh, the huge vermilion bird, with endless flames like a meteor, drags a long tail flame, and pierces towards the head of Mo Long. Yi Ran just controls Mo Long to dodge, but suddenly feels his body stagnates. Looking down, he finds that at some point, The vicious Tang snake has tightly wrapped around Molong's lower body. One controls, one blows his head. It's an absolute sure kill. Once it happens, these two curses will completely devour all of Yi Ran's cultivation. Yi Ran will also become a complete cripple. In more serious cases, his consciousness world will collapse directly and he will become an idiot. Yi Ran looked at the Suzaku rushing towards him, shaking his head slightly. No wonder ordinary Yi family members would choose to carry the burden forward instead of completely breaking the curse. This risk is indeed great. But if it only reaches this level, it's not good enough. Yi Ran looked at the Suzaku rushing towards him. Calm, the rhythm of the innate Dao body has dissipated to the extreme. The surface of the Tang snake under the Molong made a chi-chi, melting sound. The Tang snake roared in pain, but still entangled the Molong tightly. Beast, Yi Ran whispered. His fingers lightly tapped and planned to continue to increase the strength. Suddenly, a dazzling light appeared in front of Yi Ran. In the light and shadow, a majestic golden dragon hovered. This is the soul of the five-clawed golden dragon emperor. Yi Ran was a little surprised. The reward from the system just now flew out on its own. Before Yi Ran could react, the golden dragon's soul sank directly into the body of Molong. In Molong's eyes, a golden light began to appear. Behind Molong, a golden shadow several times the size of Molong appeared and disappeared. Above the shadow, a pair of dragon eyes slowly opened. A huge golden dragon emerged in Yi Ran's introspection. The huge golden dragon, with its huge body, spanned the sky. Its length stretched for miles, as if it could cover the entire sky. The scales were shining with golden light, and each one was emitting a dazzling light. The most critical point was that, compared with the black dragon, this golden dragon had one more claw. The true emperor of the dragon clan. The five-clawed golden dragon emperor. The five-clawed golden dragon emperor raised his huge head slightly and roared a loud dragon roar. The sound was louder, far more than the previous black dragon, and it was majestic, accompanied by thunder and lightning, shaking the heaven and earth with the momentum to make all things submit. Chew. The cursed Suzaku seemed to feel threatened. After a phoenix cry, the surrounding flames burned to the extreme. The momentum of the attack increased a bit. The flames in the sky gathered in the phoenix beak, piercing the trapped black dragon head. It seemed to sense the attack of the Suzaku. The five-clawed golden dragon emperor behind the black dragon lowered his head and looked at the flames that were rushing towards him. Indistinctly, a trace of disdain flashed in his huge eyes. Roar, facing the attack of the Suzaku. The five-clawed golden dragon emperor did not even make any extra movements on his body. He just raised his dragon claws at the moment when the Suzaku attacked. The five-clawed golden dragon emperor's movements seemed slow, but there was an illusion that he could not avoid it. In an instant, the golden giant claws collided directly with the roaring flames. Ding, 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 ding. Suzaku the illusory flames used their phoenix beaks to madly attack the golden giant claws. The collision of the two actually made a clanging sound like the collision of metal and stone. But no matter how hard roused Suzaku charged and attacked, it could not penetrate the golden giant claws at all. The sky was full of blazing flames. It could not move forward in front of the golden giant claws. As the five-clawed golden dragon emperor exerted force with his dragon claws, Kai, a shrill phoenix cry sounded. The previously arrogant Suzaku was caught by the five-clawed golden dragon emperor like a chick at this moment. Without the energy source, the sky was full of flames and instantly dissipated into nothingness. Roar. As the five-clawed golden dragon emperor roared, the golden light flashed on the dragon claws. The Suzaku in his hand had no time to move again. It was directly crushed into energy fragments by the huge force and dissipated between heaven and earth. Curse Suzaku, fall. With the fall of the vermilion bird, the claw chain that hooked the side of the Mo dragon's body also completely disappeared. Then, the five-clawed golden dragon emperor once again turned his dragon head to the Tang snake wrapped around the Mo dragon. Swish, swish, swish. The Tang snake wrapped around the Mo dragon, with a sinister and faint blue light, stared at the huge golden dragon head with fear in his eyes. Before the Tang snake made any move, the five-clawed golden dragon emperor's dragon claw grabbed the Tang snake's 7 inches at lightning speed. The huge force directly pulled the Tang snake off the Mo dragon's body. Swish, swish, swish. The Tang snake spit out its tongue. Its body was not, it was surging constantly, as if trying to break free from the claws of the five-clawed golden dragon emperor. As the body of the Tang snake continued to surge, its huge body actually caused the world to change color. Roar, also accompanied by the roar of the five-clawed golden dragon emperor. A golden light appeared on the dragon claws. The powerful force directly broke the 7 inches of the Tang snake. The Tang snake's head drooped down in an instant, and the whole body collapsed straight, standing upright in the sky. Slowly, the Tang snake, like the vermilion bird before, turned into little by little energy fragments, dissipated in the world. Curse the Tang snake, fall. With the fall of the Tang snake, the claw chain that hooked the other side of the Molong's body also disappeared completely. The 1,000-year curse of the 2 great families on the Yi family bloodline in Yi Ran's body was broken by the claws of the 5-clawed golden dragon emperor's soul. Roar, as if he felt the restraints on his body completely disappear. Molong let out an excited dragon roar. The dragon head looked up. It seemed that he was about to charge towards the sky again. When Molong was about to, just as it was about to soar into the sky, the huge body of the 5-clawed golden dragon emperor directly blocked the way of the black dragon. The 5-clawed golden dragon emperor looked down at Yi Ran's black dragon. His huge dragon eyes flickered. For a moment, Yi Ran had the illusion that he could see emotions in the eyes of the 5-clawed golden dragon emperor. It seemed like confusion, and puzzlement, and finally a trace of relief. Such eyes made Yi Ran feel as if he was looking at a junior whom he had not seen for a long time. Roar, with the roar of the 5-clawed golden dragon emperor. The body of the 5-clawed golden dragon emperor began to slowly dissipate, turned into golden light spots all over the sky. These golden light spots seemed to have consciousness, floating around the black dragon. Slowly the golden light spots merged into every scale of the black dragon. With the baptism of these golden light spots, Yi Ran's black dragon let out a comfortable dragon roar. After the integration of these golden light spots, the black body slowly began to emit golden light. The most amazing thing is, the original 4-clawed black dragon, at this moment, began to slowly grow a 5th dragon claw. In the introspection, Yi Ran silently closed his eyes and felt the changes in his own energy. He could clearly feel that after the 2 curses were no longer restraining him, his path to platinum was unimpeded. Not only that, he could feel his black dragon mystical art, and even his blood, which had undergone a qualitative change after being baptized by the soul of the 5-clawed golden dragon emperor. The original dark blue energy had turned into gold at this moment, and the energy grade was several levels higher than before. The power in the meridians, if it was a stream flowing before, was now as surging as the sea. The surging power made Yi Ran unable to hold back and wanted to roar to the sky. As if sensing Yi Ran's excitement, the black dragon also began to roar to the sky and rushed straight into the sky. This time, the speed was much faster than before, as if it would break through the introspection world in the next second and soar between heaven and earth. All these changes are in Yi Ran's inner world. It seems that he has experienced a lot, but in fact, it is only a moment for the outside world. At this moment, looking at Yi Ran's rising aura, Huang Dongdong's eyes are full of shock and confusion. Just when he wanted to get up and check the situation, Lan Moyan on the side blocked him with his hand. "Junior brother, what are you doing?" Huang Dongdong just wanted to avoid Lan Moyan's arm, but he was frightened by a sharp sword intent. Even his soul was trembling. "Don't go forward." Lan Moyan's words were concise, but with an irresistible momentum. At this moment, he stared at Yi Ran with a flickering look. Under the gaze of Lan Moyan and Huang Dongdong, Yi Ran's qi was surging all over his body, and he was floating in the air very slowly. The black dragon mysterious art once again took shape, and kept flying around Yi Ran's body. Lan Moyan narrowed his eyes after seeing this scene. Black dragon mysterious art. It's a little bit different, strange. As a Tuguo level extraordinary, he could feel that the energy of the black dragon was growing at an astonishing speed. Not only that, but there were also different changes in momentum. The previous black dragon gave people a sense of the hidden dragon in the abyss. Now this black dragon has a big momentum, and it is arrogant. Looking at the vast wilderness, It even made Lan Moyen feel that it was not like a black dragon at all. As time passed, the hovering black dragon began to emit a golden light. Roar. With a dragon roar, the whole black dragon seemed to have broken through some kind of shackles and began to transform from the beginning. The original black jade-like dragon head had golden dragon whiskers. As the gold continued to spread, from the dragon head to the dragon body, to the dragon claws, and finally to the dragon tail. Instantly, Yi Ran was surrounded by golden light. Under the background of the golden light, Yi Ran seemed to be the emperor of the ancient times. Majestic and unbearable to look directly at. This is. Feeling the breath of golden energy emanating from Yi Ran's body, Lan Moyen's eyes were filled with a trace of doubt. This breath, ancient and vicissitudes, eternal and meaningful, actually pulled his indestructible sword intent to sway a little. And at this moment, Huang Dongdong, who also felt the breath emanating from Yi Ran, had difficulty breathing. There was a tremor from the soul that made him want to kneel down and surrender. The breath surrounding Yi Ran was still rising, until the critical point. The golden dragon raised its head and roared, directly merged into Yi Ran's body. The golden light turned into the emperor's crown and robe, added to Yi Ran's body. The emperor's robe, woven with golden light, contained the great power of heaven and earth, shone with brilliant light, and gathered the essence of the stars. In an instant, the space around Yi Ran began to change. Roar. Dragon roars rose and fell, thunder rolled above the 9 heavens. In the void, countless giant dragon shadows appeared and disappeared. Heaven and earth phenomena. Huang Dongdong, who was struggling to resist, was shocked after seeing this scene. As the heaven and earth phenomena around Yi Ran changed, the breath from the ancient times became stronger. This was like the last straw that broke the camel's back, and completely crushed Huang Dongdong, who was struggling to support. The whole person fell into a coma. Lan Moyen glanced at Huang Dongdong, who fell to the ground. After confirming that there was no danger to his life, he also put all his mind on Yi Ran. Heaven and earth phenomena appear, it is the way of the upper 3rd grade. Lan Moyen muttered to himself. When did it become so easy to get the way of the upper 3rd grade? Lan Moyen looked at Yi Ran, but he didn't know which level of the upper 3 grades Yi Ran could reach. However, such an important stage cannot be disturbed by others. Lan Moyen waved his hand lightly. With a hum, the space around the entire forging room seemed to be cut by a sharp blade. Self-contained, completely disconnected from the outside world. Yi Ran, who was in the vision, was completely unaware of Lan Moyen's operation. Yi Ran, wearing a golden dragon robe, was majestic and domineering, looking down on all living beings. As the golden imperial robe became more and more solid, the giant dragons that were originally flying in the void all showed their true bodies one by one. Silver magic dragon, 9 nether poison dragon, flame explosion fire dragon, earth dragon, abyss ink dragon. Lan Moyen counted the figures of those giant dragons. The more he looked, the more surprised he was. Surrounding Yi Ran, the giant dragons around, without exception, are all real dragons above S level, without any low-level hybrid dragons. These real dragons roared softly. All the dragon heads focused on Yi Ran, who was standing at the core of the space. Suddenly, Yi Ran opened his eyes. His eyes were full of golden light. At this moment, the dragon robe and dragon crown on Yi Ran's body completely solidified. A huge shadow appeared beside Yi Ran. Afterwards, this is exactly the black dragon that soared in Yi Ran's introspection before. Rather than calling it a black dragon phantom, now it seems better to call it a golden dragon. That phantom, it is golden in color, and its huge body spans the sky. Roar. A loud dragon roar sounded behind Yi Ran. A breath from the ancient times suppressed the world. Magnificent and majestic, the breath of the sky spanned the ancient and modern times, making the avenue resound. All the giant dragons in the void lowered their proud dragon heads, prostrated themselves, and worshipped Yi Ran. At this moment, Yi Ran stood in the center of the vision, like an emperor, accepting the kneeling of all the real dragons. Lan Moyen looked at this vision of heaven and earth, and was speechless for a long time. The dragon emperor descended, and the dragons bowed their heads. This kind of heaven and earth phenomenon does not belong to any of the heaven and earth phenomena known before. But compared with the heaven and earth phenomenon when he stood at the top of the sword sect and took his own path, The 1,000 swords rang out and cut through the eternal night. It is not much inferior. In other words, Yi Ran's path is of the second grade. It is a second-grade path that can only be walked by the strongest in the world. Lan Moyen stared at Yi Ran in a daze. The upper 3 grades of the path can trigger heaven and earth phenomena. But there are also gaps between the 3 grades. The gap between each grade of the upper 3 grades is so big. Even far exceeds the sum of the other 6 grades. To reach the second grade of the path, at least means that Yi Ran's extraordinary path has been unblocked. And it also means that Yi Ran has the potential to impact the country-killing level of extraordinary. As for the first grade, it is almost extinct. Even many strong people began to think that the first grade only exists in the most ideal state. In reality, no one can get out of it. Seeing a brand new second grade road being born under his eyes. This made Lan Moyen, who has always been pure and unselfish, a little excited. As time passed, the strange phenomenon of heaven and earth slowly dissipated. Yi Ran walked in the air and slowly landed on the ground. He silently felt the breath on his body, majestic and magnificent, with the momentum of awe-inspiring mountains and rivers, and the power of penetrating the sun and the moon. This is completely different from his previous golden stage. There is an illusion of a different dimension. Not only that, Yi Ran could also clearly feel the roar of his blood, without the shackles of the curse of the python and the bird. Yi Ran's black dragon mysterious art had never been as smooth as it was today. Strictly speaking, it can no longer be called black dragon mysterious art. This golden dragon king power, whether in terms of momentum or quality, completely crushes the previous black dragon power. If it is said that when fighting against Han Kun before, it still needs the assistance of the system and the blessing of the innate Tao body to catch Han Kun off guard to win. Then if Yi Ran meets Han Kun again now, Yi Ran feels that it is not much different from crushing an ant to death. The second grade Tao, the road to the strongest, is indeed well deserved. However, is it enough to just get to this step? Am I really satisfied with this second grade Tao? Yi Ran silently closed his eyes, seemingly struggling. After a while, Yi Ran opened his eyes again, his eyes gleaming with determination and resoluteness. The sound of the dragon roared, and the golden shadow of the Dragon King emerged. Instantly, Yi Ran's breath was agitated. Roar, accompanied by a dragon roar. The golden shadow of the Dragon King emerged. As Yi Ran's mind moved, the shadow of the Dragon King seemed to circle around Yi Ran reluctantly, and went out directly, turning into a golden rain, dissipating between heaven and earth. The whole space was filled with the roar of thousands of dragons. The sound was sobbing, like pain, like wailing. Yi Ran's breath also began to drop sharply. The realm also slowly fell from above platinum. The second grade path. The Dragon King descended, the strange phenomenon of heaven and earth with dragons bowing their heads, was crushed by Yi Ran himself. After seeing this scene, Lan Moyen was a little stunned. What happened? Failed to advance. Lan Moyen narrowed his eyes. No, it was not a failure to advance. I took the initiative to break up the strange phenomenon of heaven and earth and gave up the platinum. Why? What on earth did Yi Ran want to do? This scene. Even Lan Moyen, who had a heart as strong as a god, had his blood pressure soar. It was a waste of natural resources. It was a waste of natural resources. At this time, Yi Ran silently felt his own situation. Since he had already entered the realm of platinum, his own aura was much stronger than that of a perfect gold, and even not much different from that of an ordinary platinum beginner. The curse on his bloodline had completely dissipated. Not only that, the nourishment of the 5-clawed golden dragon king was still there, and the power running in his body was still the power of the golden dragon king, which was much stronger than his previous power of the black dragon. Overall, his strength had been greatly improved. Yi Ran recalled the strange scene of heaven and earth worshipped by thousands of dragons before. Is it a pity? It's a pity indeed. However, the second grade heaven and earth phenomenon is not enough for me. Yi Ran has a deep and far-sighted vision. Since he doesn't plan to be a salted fish anymore, he must take the road of the strongest. If he wants to do it, he must be the only one above millions of people. The dragon emperor who descended to the world is not called the emperor. The emperor who swept across the world and announced to the world with the souls of his enemies is the real emperor. Just when Yi Ran was determined, he suddenly felt a fierce murderous aura coming from behind him. Why? Lan Moyan's cold voice came from behind Yi Ran. Yi Ran turned around and glanced at Lan Moyan. The whole person was completely stunned. At this moment, Lan Moyan's blind box has been opened by the system. Lan Moyan, male, 20 years old. 2 Guo level extraordinary person. Inherited sect, Sword God sect. Current skills, 9 Heaven Star Sword Art. Advantages, Perfect Sword Heart, Natural Sword Embryo, Top Sword Comprehension, Top Destructive Power, Top Speed, Top Strength, Absolute Intuition. Disadvantages, Underlevel, cannot be viewed. Suggestion, don't provoke. Yi Ran rubbed his eyes. 2 Guo level extraordinary person. Then Yi Ran repeatedly turned the system on and off again. After countless times, finally, he had to face this fact. Yi Ran looked at Lan Moyan, but his mind still didn't come to his senses. This sudden critical hit made Yi Ran's worldview begin to waver. Yi Ran looked at Lan Moyan with a complicated expression. Before you ask me why, I really want to ask you why. A great 2 Guo level extraordinary doesn't want to become famous, but comes to be a student in my own salted fish class. And he even became Huang Dongdong's junior brother. I always thought that Li Wancheng's behavior was the underwear of extraordinary dignity. Who would have thought that you, big brother, don't even want underwear? Big brother, what are you looking for? This crazy world. It's all crazy, it's all crazy, it's better to be crazy. Of course, as an adult who is fully responsible for his own safety, he still obeyed the system's advice of, don't provoke. Although there were countless horses galloping in his heart, Yi Ran's face was calm. No reason, this path is not suitable for me. This sentence directly choked Lan Moyan. The second grade path is not suitable for you. Do you know that millions of golden boys can't get out of this second grade path no matter how hard they beg? Do you know? Dao is in a certain province. If you walk out of the second grade path, you can be the first to worship your ancestors. The family tree will start another branch from you. Are you not satisfied with the second grade path? Do you still want to walk out of the first grade path to heaven? Lan Moyan shook his head and looked at Yi Ran with some confusion, but did not question or speak again. Although Yi Ran gave up on his own initiative this time, but since he was able to walk out of the second grade path this time, this proves Yi Ran's potential. When he advances to Platinum next time, Yi Ran's probability of walking out of the second grade path is much greater than that of others. Although he is a little angry about Yi Ran's wasteful behavior, but this does not affect Lan Moyan's intention to recruit Yi Ran. Lan Moyan, who has recovered his state of mind, also realized that his behavior just now was a bit of a lie. When he was thinking about how to fool around, Yi Ran spoke. Well, Lan classmate, I think. So perceptive, have you discovered it? Lan Moyan frowned slightly. Before he truly gained Yi Ran's trust, now is not a good time to show his cards. It seems that this is the only way to use it. Lan Moyan's eyes tightened, and he suddenly interrupted Yi Ran's speech. I feel a little dizzy. Instantly, Lan Moyan held his forehead with one hand, and the whole person began to stagger and could not stand steadily. With a clang, Lan Moyan fell directly beside Huang Dongdong. The suddenness of the action and the poor acting skills made Yi Ran's mouth twitch. This is the philosophy of life that Lan Moyan has learned from Kendo. When you encounter something that cannot be explained at all, the best way is not to explain it. Nothing is more direct than falling to the ground. Cut the Gordian knot. Always do the most effective action. Simple and crude, reasonable and efficient. As for image dignity, sorry, in Lan Moyan's dictionary, there are only goals and swords. Facing Lan Moyan, who had already fallen unconscious, Yi Ran had thousands of words gathered at his lips, but he just couldn't say them. What can he do, facing such a 2 Guo level extraordinary? He couldn't beat him, and he didn't dare to scold him. He wanted to talk to him and persuade him to leave, but he refused to communicate with him and lay on the ground pretending to be dead. Yi Ran felt so tired at this time. Originally, he had a good time managing the class and leading students. Now he not only has to act with an extraordinary assistant, but also has to act with a Tuguo-level boss cosplay teacher and students. Do you extraordinary people really have nothing to do? You just catch yourself and make trouble. Yi Ran was in a state of grief and indignation. However, the great Marxist philosophy and the fundamental law of dialectical materialism once said, contradictions are unity of opposites. Everything has its good side and its bad side. At least, with these two living fathers in his class, his students no longer have to be afraid of the small moves of the Zhu family's forces. Yi Ran comforted himself. Ouch. Perhaps he was shocked by Lan Moyan's fall to the ground. Huang Dongdong, who was still in a coma, sat up while rubbing his painful forehead. His expression was like he had a hangover. Huang Dongdong looked at Lan Moyan, who was fainting on the ground beside him. He smiled complacently. He shook his head in an adult manner. Hey, you are still too young. Without your senior brother, you had to follow me. You were unlucky. Hiss. Strange, why is it so cold all of a sudden? Can I catch a cold? Huang Dongdong shuddered as soon as he finished speaking, and his heart palpitated for no reason. Seeing this scene, Yi Ran couldn't help but twitch his mouth slightly. The style of the fire sect is indeed well deserved. In order to prevent Huang Dongdong from saying anything outrageous, Yi Ran asked directly, Dongdong, are you awake? Huang Dongdong looked up and saw Yi Ran, and said excitedly, Master, have you broken through the platinum level? I just saw the strange phenomenon of heaven and earth. Yi Ran shook his head and did not explain too much. Not yet, I should be about the same as you now. Huang Dongdong heard Yi Ran's answer, and muttered, No, I clearly saw the strange phenomenon, is it an illusion? However, Huang Dongdong's doubts flashed by, and since his master said so, it must be the case. Huang Dongdong was eccentric. He imitated Yi Ran's posture and said in Yi Ran's tone, Normal. If the third grade avenue could be walked out so easily, then all the heroes in the world would be dead. Yi Ran smiled at Huang Dongdong, who was imitating his speech. He seemed to feel Huang Dongdong's desire to liven up the atmosphere and comfort him. Okay, stop being naughty, we've done everything, pack up and leave. Okay, master. Seeing that Yi Ran was not depressed, Huang Dongdong also responded very obediently. Then, he lifted up Lan Moyan, who was pretending to be fainted, and followed Yi Ran out of the forging room. Dongdong, you may need to adapt when you go back. Ah, why master? Didn't you notice that your hair and eyebrows were all burned? After a while, the three of them had arrived at the corridor of the teaching building. Dongdong, you're carrying, go to the classroom with him, I won't go over. Yi Ran said to Huang Dongdong at the entrance of the corridor. Huang Dongdong nodded gloomily. Be happy, the old will not go, the new will not come, your eyebrows and hair will grow in 2 days. Yi Ran looked at Huang Dongdong with a smile, and touched Huang Dongdong's smooth head. It feels good. Huang Dongdong looked at Yi Ran helplessly. Master, where are you going? I'm going to ask for some mental damage compensation. Yi Ran waved his hand and left the two of them. Looking at the direction of departure, it seems that he went straight to the principal's office. And just after Yi Ran left, Lan Moyan slowly opened his eyes. Are you awake? Huang Dongdong looked at Lan Moyan. Lan Moyan nodded at Yi Ran's back. You woke up at the right time. You woke up just after teacher Yi left. Huang Dongdong shook his head, seeming to be a little uncomfortable with the feeling of having no hair. My senior brother told you in advance not to follow me. Look at you. You are suffering. You didn't listen to the old man and suffered the consequences. Huang Dongdong warned his so-called junior brother arrogantly. Lan Moyan touched Huang Dongdong's head with a smile. It feels really good, since watching Huang Dongdong's process of forging the Samadhi True Fire Golden Body. Lan Moyan also listed Huang Dongdong as a key focus. This time he was in a good mood at the time. After all, who could have thought that this trip would bring double happiness? Huang Dongdong avoided Lan Moyan in a bad mood. How can you treat your senior brother like this? You are disrespectful. Huang Dongdong symbolically wiped his bald forehead and said to Lan Moyan. Junior brother, let's not go to class today. Huh. Just skipping class, how much can happen in one afternoon? Huang Dongdong hesitantly persuaded Lan Moyan. In fact, it was because he had not prepared himself mentally, and he showed his bald head to others. Huang Dongdong was ready to choose between embarrassment and escape. Lan Moyan looked at Huang Dongdong and shook his head. No. What's wrong? There are many students who skip classes. Can you be called a college student if you don't skip classes? Huang Dongdong said anxiously. Lan Moyan looked at Huang Dongdong. Does Teacher Yi want you to skip classes? Lan Moyan's words, like his personality, are always concise and to the point. One sentence hit Huang Dongdong's vital point. Huang Dongdong, who originally wanted to escape, was like a defeated rooster. He followed Lan Moyan towards the classroom with his head down. Ha ha ha, Dongdong, your style is really unique. The development of things is exactly as Huang Dongdong expected. The materials are exactly the same. Huang Dongdong's bald appearance became the focus of the whole class after entering the class. Because he had no hair and eyebrows. And he was relatively young. Huang Dongdong looked like a hairless big-headed doll, which looked extremely festive. However, everyone was not very familiar with Huang Dongdong, and they could only laugh secretly. But Wang Dakan was different. From the moment Huang Dongdong came in, Wang Dakan's upturned mouth corners never came down. He had been laughing for half an hour. Wang Dongdong looked at Wang Dakan, who was laughing so hard, and his eyes glared. Then he turned his head and said to Wang Dakan, "What do you know, stupid guy? This is what Teacher Yi taught me when he gave me a special lesson." After hearing this, Wang Dakan's smile was much more restrained. Yi Ran's advice was too important to Wang Dakan's heart. You said that this was taught by Teacher Yi. Huang Dongdong shook his head and said, Teacher Yi said that hair is an extension of the body and consumes a lot of energy from the heart. Only after completely removing the hair and closing the pores can one truly feel the power of the heart. From then on, the cultivation will advance by leaps and bounds. Huang Dongdong's words were very logical, which made Wang Dakan stunned. But Wang Dakan was smart at this time. He looked at Huang Dongdong with some doubts. Dongdong, are you lying to me? Huang Dongdong was a little kid, pouting and looking at Wang Dakan with a smug look on his face. Why would I lie to you? If you don't believe me, let's have a competition and you'll know. Huang Dongdong stretched out his arm and looked at Wang Dakan provocatively. Come on, I'm not afraid of you. Wang Dakan stretched out his hand doubtfully and held Huang Dongdong's hand. At the moment of contact with Wang Dakan's palm, Huang Dongdong's palm exerted force instantly. Wang Dakan's palm was directly twisted. Of course, Wang Dakan was not a pushover. He directly concentrated the huge force on his palm. The deformed palm returned to normal again. Instantly, the power of the two sides reached a balance. Dongdong, you are much stronger, but this is not enough. Wang Dakan praised Huang Dongdong's strength improvement. But it was still within his psychological tolerance. Listening to Wang Dakan's speech, Huang Dongdong's mouth corners slightly raised. Really, then you be careful. Instantly, Huang Dongdong's little hand glowed with golden red light from the inside out. The power seemed to be much stronger. The surging power pinched Wang Dakan's palm again. Shish, shish. Huang Dongdong was not only strong, but also had a special high temperature on his palm, which made Wang Dakan's palm emit a burning sound. The explosive power and extreme high temperature caught Wang Dakan off guard. He could only withdraw his palm in pain. Wang Dakan looked at his palm in shock. At this time, both sides of his palm had turned black, and the recovery was extremely slow. He had clearly used the power of Teoti to partially strengthen his palm. Although he was not well prepared, however, with Teoti's top defense ability and top strength, it was more than enough to deal with Huang Dongdong before. For a moment, Wang Dakan's eyes changed when he looked at Huang Dongdong. Logically speaking, Huang Dongdong definitely did not have such strength. Could it be that this shaving behavior really came from Teacher Yi's special instructions? At this moment, Wang Dakan's heart was completely shaken, and the smile on his face disappeared. Silly brother, you believe it this time. Huang Dongdong raised his hand and waved it in front of Wang Dakan, looking at Wang Dakan's complacency. Humph, let you laugh at me, silly guy. Wang Dakan looked at Huang Dongdong deeply, and after a while, he turned around and left the classroom without saying a word, and walked with the wind, even a little hurriedly. Dakan, what are you going to do? Huang Dongdong asked. Barber shop. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.